Yo, looks like we are live.
Hello. So what are we talking about
What's
today?
up? This weekend or Friday probably.
Yes,
Today is what?
Monday.
Today is 24th of February, Monday. On Friday, Blume dropped like an atomic bomb on the Indian tech Twitter in the form of Indus Valley Annual Report 2025. They're not the best with the names, but
I
it
like
was
I
still a
like I
fucking
like
bomb.
Indus Valley report. I think annual थोड़ा ज़्यादा हो गया.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they had a good start, but then just like Pakistan, they had a 100 run century and then
Yeah.
lost it. But yeah, we got a Virat Kohli century out of it. I liked
It
it.
was a great game.
The game was boring, but at least
But then yeah,
century was there.
it was not as
Yeah, I'm done with
yeah
Pakistan. I want now Australia to be
yeah
the one where we actually get something out. But anyway, coming back to this, I thought we had enough time that we can make this video later. But then Veerdas showed up out of nowhere. Veerdas tweeting about this report. I think it's because he has this India one in
yeah.
India. No, he has a
There are
theory
two
of
Indias.
there are two Indias,
Now we have four
and then
Indias.
he. But anyway, so the report dropped. Everyone's talking about it, but there are people like me who did not want to do it. Like who was just like, do I have to do this homework? Like Bloom has just given me a homework. Like should I
That's
not?
why they dropped it on Friday because they knew मतलब Monday to Friday सब काम पे busy होते हैं. So
Correct.
let's take up everyone's weekends and give them some work to do.
Yeah, and already like people have started, uh, like putting using AI to sort of summarize and all those things. But who can beat a human touch like
Yeah,
us?
yeah. So
Like
we
us.
are your personal AI assistants who've gone through the report, and we
Yeah.
will
We are
talk you
just
through it.
artificial. We don't have intelligence. Yeah, so basically the report is divided into multiple
Yes.
things, multiple sections. It's like India. It recaps the last 5 years of India. Then they are talking about long-term structural forces, like some VC stuff. I don't know. And then they talk about consumption, which is where I could actually understand some things. After that, they divided into the report into the second section, which was Indus Valley, which is now things that affect like startups and tech and all those things, uh, based on this report or the data they've collected. And this report is created by Bloom, specifically I think Sajid Pai, and then his team. I think Anurag is somebody that I know
Yeah.
by the name over there. There are more people. Sorry, I don't remember the names, but maybe they're written. Yeah, there's Sajid Pai, Anurag, Savitri, and Dhruv.
Yes.
So all credits to them. Then in the industry section, we have funding trends, we have IPO, we have sector deep dives, and playbooks. So lots to go through.
Cool. So let's start with the Indian economy. I think let's like go through this quickly because I don't think we are experts in this field.
Maybe we can
Yeah.
masquerade as one.
Well, I feels like I'm one of those like TV commentators talking about shit I don't know about here. But I mean, like,
That's how we grow,
huh?
baby.
I mean, India
Anyway,
pandemic, economic shock, rates cuts, economy boom, personal lending boom. People are spending money on things, driving consumption growth, leads to inflation, leads to rate raises, leads to unsecured lending growth slowing down. As a result,
where,
you wanna cut
where,
what?
where are we going with this?
I don't know. I thought we were just summarizing the first entire part.
Okay, okay. Okay,
I
please
was speed
continue.
running through the report.
Okay,
Uh,
okay.
but like I think the first interesting thing in the report I saw was our wage growth in the country across several sectors has been below the core inflation. So I don't know if you saw this, but like BFSI, retail, IT, logistics, wage growth has been very slow. as a result, like the other interesting thing I saw was that over the last couple of quarters, and a lot of FMCG brands have also been talking about this, but um, rural consumption has been growing faster than urban consumption for the last 4 quarters, almost the last entire year now. And maybe it shows some signs of stress in urban India, and people's wages aren't increasing, so they're not spending as much. But might lead to FMCG companies, at least in some shape or form, having to focus a little more on rural India.
And so yeah, basically, one big takeaway is that rural India is growing faster than the urban India for whatever reasons. Okay,
Only in terms of
then
FMCG sales.
only in terms of FMCG, which is like core consumption category. And it also says that the consumption has apparently slowed down, but it has the GDP has not slowed down as much, mostly because the government is spending a lot more money.
Well, the I guess the other kind of section that felt really interesting was like India India's economy has been formalizing a lot more. Like, I think we've always talked about how India is this massive informal economy, and I mean, we are nowhere near the formalization of kind of modern modern or Western economies, but there is still a lot of growth and formalization. Like the one thing that like really blew my mind was looking at like the jewelry market that Bloom put out this graph where in 2020 or in 2000 in the year 2000 only 5% of the jewelry market was organized. Now that number is closer to 40%, which is like almost a 10x
Wow.
growth uh, in just
In market
yeah
share.
yeah in just 25 years. And like I couldn't really look at what exactly were the reasons for it, but I assume that like we've had this massive jewelry brands kind of get built up over the last 4 or 5 years, be it the Tatas or Carrot Lane or this or that, and like massive amount of like franchisee outlets that people are maybe more keen to trust certain brands over time.
When I was growing up, I would always buy things from my local
Yeah,
kirana store.
yeah,
Okay, that guy was like as informal as possible. Let's say we want to buy dal or some fruits, right? Um, Earlier we would get like dal, like
agents, yeah,
the guy would just take it and then just pack it in whatever polythene or whatever it
yeah,
has he has, and then give it
yeah,
to us. Now we get like proper branded
yeah,
Ashirwad,
yeah, or Tata,
Tata,
yeah,
and what
yeah,
and
yeah,
everything. So basically, that was the first thing, was the informal thing, right? Where the government really doesn't know how do we track this. The other is a formal thing, because there's a company behind it which has to report the numbers and all those things, and then that data gets given to the government and they are able to
yeah,
track it. So this essentially is the
yeah,
formalization.
yeah,
So if you just look at it to jewelry as well, I think initially you would just go to a local jeweler. You have to have trust in the
yeah,
jeweler,
yeah. So it's like kind of
right?
like your family jeweler, or who you've gone from generations,
Generations, correct.
and
And
you
now
have like Tata.
you can trust a
Yeah,
brand,
yeah, yeah,
Tata.
yeah.
Yeah, you can trust Tata and basically make sure that, if they're selling it to you, you can probably be safe to say that they are not going to give you
Fake metal.
fake
Yeah,
gold,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? I think that thing sort of probably does a lot to the formalization bit for
yeah,
India's
yeah. And I
economy.
think that's kind of like happening category wide. I mean, like Bloom's put up other charts that shows like the fan market is more formalized, wedding and
Yeah,
celebration
same
wear is
thing.
more formalized. So kind of we're seeing that across all categories
Correct.
of
So
consumption.
wedding also, I can tell you one thing. So when I got
Yeah,
married, uh, essentially there were two choices I had for,
Sabyasachi
let's say,
and
food.
Manish Malhotra.
Bro, food.
Oh, food.
Yeah. By the way, even in clothes, I had the option of like when my dad got married, there was only, you go to the tailor or
Yeah, yeah,
whatever is like the local this
yeah.
thing, and you get it made from get it from there, like your main kapda, main clothes. Now we had the option of Manyavar as well,
Yes,
like,
yes.
which is like a formalized
Yeah.
brand, versus I got from some Ram Singh or something,
Okay.
which is like a headache to deal with, and they are so old, like they're in like proper Jaipur
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
days. But then Those are the things like my parents were comfortable with. But now let's say if somebody has migrated to an urban city like a Jaipur, or even let's say Bangalore, Delhi, whatever, now they don't have those connections to know that who is the right person to go
Yeah, yeah,
to do that wedding shopping, which is where that formalizing economy
helps.
helps, because they're like, okay, Manyavar is somebody I can trust because I've seen Anushka Sharma and Virat Kohli in their
Yeah,
ad, or whatever
yeah,
reason,
yeah.
right? And they can just go there and be like, okay, this is probably like decent enough for me, right? So maybe as and when the urbanization gets through, as and when more people are displaced from their native places and whatnot, this formalization also becomes more important, interesting, what have you. Another thing that caught my eye, by the way, was that India is more of a services driven economy. And by services like IT is there, let's say real estate brokerage, financial services, banking is a service, transportation is service, hotel is
Yep.
service. Essentially, whenever you're not
Selling.
like selling
Yeah,
goods,
yeah,
the opposite is service. Right? One thing that I realized was people who are trying to sell to um, goods based things, the market is like smaller in India. That's just one thing I came out. But even then, it's like not like minuscule. It's like still 30-35% of whatever $1 trillion we
yeah,
have.
yeah, yeah.
uh, but services, I feel like, are a more mature market to sell to in India, is what my outcome was.
Makes sense. I mean, like, but it's interesting that, like, I mean, services like 55% of our GDP, but still only like a third of the labor force. Like, the one thing that really shocked me a little, because, like, I mean, like, I've grown up in both India and the US and spent time in both countries as an adult. What I've always heard
Hmm.
is Indians save way more than any other country, and there's a huge emphasis on savings. And, like, I would never see my roommates in the US or friends in the US save as aggressively as people I know in India. And then I see the
Hmm.
report and I'm like, oh, India actually does not save that much. Did you see, like,
Hmm.
our overall savings rate has kind of not been
Fallen.
as aggressive as other countries,
Yeah.
and, like, household savings is on the decline?
So I think this report is like
Uh,
maybe looking at the whole of
yeah,
India, and maybe we are in our own
we
bubbles.
are India one.
Uh, yeah, India one,
No, but
right?
I guess, like, I
Uh,
had never kind of thought about how, oh, maybe that what I had always heard about with savings was just kind of one part of the country and the other part doesn't really
yeah, yeah,
have a lot of savings, so to speak.
correct. I mean that's something that I was also surprised by, because I've always lived in my bubble,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, everyone's just saving money. I'm guessing if there was a US one, US two, US three,
No, but,
US one,
like,
because they're making more,
yeah,
they are saving more.
the US, like, population is a lot more homogenous than India. Like, the, like, income inequality in India is kind of way more extreme, um,
Hmm.
in terms of a lot of different facets. So, like, I think you'll see this at, like, kind of later, but, like, I think there's a thing where, like, only 2% of India pay taxes, but, like, it's like
Correct.
45% of Americans pay taxes. So the the India one, India three, I don't think you can apply that same filter to the
Got
US
it.
to the same degree, because otherwise US one may the slow होंगे बस. It'll be like Jeff, Mark, Tim, Elon, and
Yeah.
Soros. Yeah, that's India. That's US one.
Correct. But yeah, I mean, I was also surprised to see that India doesn't save. Especially because like saving is such an ingrained thing around us. Like we are so risk averse as a country. Even then we are not saving, then I don't know. It's just maybe they are not making enough money to be able to
Yeah,
save.
yeah.
Maybe that's like, but so do you know the Sahara scam?
I mean, I am. I've heard of it.
Heard of it?
Yeah,
Yeah, you don't know, but so essentially what it was a saving scheme. Every day you would like submit a rupee or 10 rupee or whatever. The Sahara agent will come. You will every day, because there's a concept of
yeah,
dihadi. Dihadi
yes.
means day laborer or day wage or whatever. So we don't have, as we saw, right? Like we don't have formal employment. Maybe we haven't seen it yet. Maybe it will come later in the report. I don't know. But we don't have the concept of like stable monthly income. But all the savings, SIPs, everything is built on the concept of monthly
or
savings,
daily
right?
savings,
Monthly.
or kind of it's a lot more around structured investments than built around wages being inflexible, so to say.
So because of that, like Sahara was good because every day you would earn money, you would come and you would give to your
Yeah,
whoever agent was, and you would give them 10 rupees, and then they would collect like 300 rupees for the village or the locality or whatever, and then they would technically give it to Sahara, and then Sahara was supposed to invest it, but like they were running upon the scheme and not. So I mean, it was like the worst execution of the
yeah,
whole thing,
yeah.
but the idea remained. I think your portfolio company Jar does the same thing.
To a degree,
Uh,
where like you can
they
kind of
to a
invest as little at any point you want to. Though I think they are kind of a lot of their users do have UPI auto pay enabled, where it's like a daily saving of certain amount, or a weekly saving, or a monthly saving
got
as
it.
well.
Yeah,
Who,
so maybe not in the right same
yeah,
format, but I think same
yeah,
idea,
agree.
correct? And that was like a very popular thing, the Sahara thing, because people are like, okay, this helps me save and not pinch my
Yep,
pocket, right? So that's why, like, I thought like there's a concept of trying to save money everywhere in India,
yeah,
right? But
this
maybe
ability.
this shows that we don't really make that much to be able to save that
No,
much.
and I mean, like, there's a great segue to India's labor force. We're talking about that. Like, you have so there's about 1.4 billion people, and we only have a labor force of about 600 million people, out of which only 70 million people have a regular salary, so to speak. That's what, like, 12-13%. So a
Hmm.
majority of our workforce is either daily wage or casual laborers. They're self-employed, maybe running like a small business, or like 33% of, so self-employment is actually the largest category of employment in India, out of which so that's about 58%, out of which 33% is actually unpaid help at household businesses. I don't know if these are just housewives or people who are working for a small shop and not being paid, or working for their family's farm and not being paid. But when such a large part of your labor force gets little to no income, there's not like a lot you can save, I guess. And that's kind of what's really like scary in a sense, or like even Bangladesh has like 40% of its workforce that is in regular salary employment, and we are stuck at like 13%.
Yeah, that 9% is very small. Honestly, like while reading this, the first couple of sections, I was just depressed. Like I was like, where am I?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and plus, do I know the country
yeah.
at all? Like that
I
was
mean,
one
like
of those
50, almost
moments.
50% of the country still works in agriculture. I
Yeah,
remember hearing about, like, studying this in school, in like economics, I think in like seventh and eighth standard, or like, oh, like 50% of India works in agriculture. And that number has just remained the same. What keeps decreasing is how much agriculture contributes to the GDP. And it almost seems like either these folks can't find jobs in other sectors, or they cannot skill themselves to get jobs in other sectors. But that seems like a huge mismatch of like resource allocation, or like 50% of the country is driving 70% of the GDP and maybe not being employed in suitable means.
so the title of the slide essentially says India has a disguised unemployment
Yeah,
problem and a jobless growth
yeah,
problem. And essentially it is saying that 46% of the jobs in India are in
yeah.
agriculture, but they only contribute to 15%.
Okay, so not even 17. I was wrong. My bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
yeah.
mean
The next slide was even more shocking, to be honest. I don't know if you saw that, but
oh man, this slide. Okay, let me just
yeah,
describe it in case we have audio listeners. Uh, But what's worrying is higher the education level, higher the unemployment rate, and essentially graduates and above are 28.7%, like they're
Unemployed. So
unemployed.
like if you went to college in India, there's a 1 in 4 chance you are unemployed.
You will be unemployed, correct. And then I think there's also like a power law.
Yeah.
So like if you went to, let's say, IITs, or maybe some colleges which take like a lot of uh, some, I don't know,
Prestige
good,
or
how do I
smartness.
define the prestigious
Yeah, yeah,
colleges, yeah. You might not be among those
yeah,
people,
yeah,
but the lower tier college that you keep going, like I think that number
yeah,
sort of
yeah,
increases. Then but the numbers sort of go down as your education level goes down. So graduate and above, 28.7% unemployed. Secondary or higher secondary schooling, 11.5%. Below secondary, which means elementary, okay, elementary schooling, 6.1%. I think it's till 8th standard shared, maybe it's
yeah,
elementary.
yeah.
Below
Which is
primary,
below
which is like
fifth.
less than
Yeah.
5th standard, only 3.2%.
So the goal is to then not go to school at all and you'll have a job. I mean, I think
I had
the one thing that I feel like would be really helpful here is to like see how many people are actually in each category. Because I don't know if like graduates and above is like 100 million people or like 500 million people. And like, so
Yeah,
because like
correct.
below primary might just be like, hey, I mean, I assume it's not like a minuscule number, but it might be. I have like just given the scale of the country's population, sometimes I have like no clue how to visualize some of these stats.
Yeah.
Uh,
I had a, by the way, I had a tweet on
okay.
this that I had like sent, which was, so there's a famous saying in Hindi, and this was like something that was always told to me by everyone around, not like my parents, but like my neighbors and everybody who's like on the street, and they're like, खेलोगे कूदोगे, sorry, पढ़ोगे लिखोगे बनोगे नवाब, खेलोगे कूदोगे बनोगे खराब, which means like if you study you will be like a
Yeah.
king, but if you don't study, if you play, you'll be a loser.
Yeah.
But like the stats say something
Well,
else.
I think that like the stats need to be taken into context because I think education in India at the highest level is still like the greatest way you can become socially and economically mobile upwards. Like that's the way
Correct,
out of.
but there's like a proper Hunger Games going
Yeah,
on over
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. But that
you
is
know
unfortunately also the reality. Um,
so they also, by the way, they also give a reason why this might be happening, and it's like basically the headline says, because India's youth want AC jobs or government
yeah,
jobs. And essentially there are like bunch of tweets and data
yeah,
points
yeah,
which are saying that the number of people who want to sort of the craze for government jobs is like too big in
yeah,
India. I think it might not be because it's like AC job, but it might also be because stability
yeah,
and you
yeah.
get to sort of
But
make money, power,
yeah,
whatever.
and but it was also interesting to see that like I've always thought of India as a country that has a lot of government jobs, but compared to China, US, and Brazil, we're actually like far low. Like I had no clue that the US per capita has more government jobs. Like we will see if that still remains the case with Doge and
Doge.
Elon firing everyone. But like the US has like 5 times the number of government jobs per capita than India. But I think the other thing that was like even like I mean just appalling or shocking was the share of India's workforce that has training in formal skills. Did you see this? Like India is at 2.3%, Japan is at 96%, um, China is at 26%, US is at 52%. Like it is a old, like it's 5 years old. So like I would assume that's
Yeah.
kind of gone up.
So
Um,
basically, the this thing is, India has far fewer population that has undergone formal skills
yeah, and like
training.
I mean, you see this
Uh,
like in like I mean like there's no formal electrician board or plumbing board or like a lot of these kind of skills in India which have some decent amount of employment are still kind of completely informal in terms of like how they are formally taught skills.
Yeah, I mean, for example, if you want to become a
Yeah,
tailor, right? I don't know if there are like schools that do that, and because they are not there, or maybe if they are, they're very small, low number, low in
yeah,
number. So you that data probably doesn't get captured. I think this might be like we are probably not at, obviously not at
yeah,
95%,
yeah,
96% for sure, but I don't know if we are still at 2.3
yeah.
percent I think realistically 10% or above might be there, because I mean services are the ones that are, let's say, um, pulling us forward, right? I mean, like, I can debate this by saying that more than 2.3% of people are productively working in
No,
India,
agreed,
so
agreed.
they must have
Yeah, yeah,
skills, skill
yeah,
training
yeah.
or
No,
something.
but I think
But
that's
yeah,
where like for example, like you don't even need like institutions for formal skill development, but for something like what urban company does for like home services, they send
hmm,
people through their own training program, and they
hmm,
can obviously only handle it to some scale because they are a
hmm,
private entity and can only work in certain fields. But if you had formal skill development courses that are maybe like 3 month, 6 month, 1 year long programs at institutions run across the government, you could massively upskill a lot more folks and hopefully give them better employment chances.
hmm,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Do you have any? I have one business idea for India as
Go for it.
do you, okay. So hear me out. We have a lot of people who don't make any money. We also
Hmm,
have close to free data and a lot of people with smartphones.
hmm,
We like AI is the next big thing, and training AI requires a lot of data labeling, and so we need to like create a company that lets people do data labeling tasks on their smartphones and like
hmm,
earn money on their phones when they're like instead of like spending 3 hours on YouTube, maybe like someone can spend 3 hours on their phone making
yep,
a couple thousand rupees, and like I'm sure that'll be
makes sense.
a good boost to our economy and help
Yeah,
foundational model
I
companies in the US.
I think one thing that is the only roadblock here is the lack of English education, because plus, so my uncle is a languages teacher. He teaches English, French, Italian, German,
Oh wow.
and some more languages. Yeah. So basically, his initial this thing was people are having to emigrate, let's say, to Paris for some job, and let's say they need to be fluent in French before they leave, and basically that's how they got started, like training these people. But the day they added English, right, the demographic changed completely. Like it was just people sending their kids, uh, and for he was like happy, like he's like my business growing. But then one day I was like reflecting with him what happened, like why, what changed with like just English, and he's like, the English premium in India is about
Oh
60%.
wow. Okay.
So if you know English, you tend to make 60% more
Okay.
money than your non-English knowing counterparts for the same set of skills.
So okay,
My
okay.
God,
I have extension to the idea. So first you have a AI tutor that teaches you
that
English.
teaches English.
Then that same app lets you use your English skills to make money.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, see, once the whole root problem that sort of also shows up in this report essentially is that we haven't focused a lot
Yeah.
on our primary education. If we would have done that, probably we would have taught English to more people. Still, I mean, we are not like lagging behind in the sense we have 40% apparently
Yeah, I
people in
mean,
India that
India
speak
has
English.
the most number of English speakers of anywhere in the globe.
Hmm,
I think we're past the US at this point as a
wow.
first or second language. Not as like a first language, but yeah,
Obviously. Interesting. Like number of English speakers purely. Interesting. So yeah, I mean, even at this point, we have
yeah.
that, right?
But the problem is
Uh,
it's the 50% of India who doesn't speak English yet are in underutilized or unemployed jobs. So you
Correct.
need,
If you don't speak
yeah, yeah,
English, if you're not comfortable with English, probably you're not really making that much money. That's what
yeah,
I'm saying.
no,
That
yeah,
there's an English premium in India.
fair,
Makes
fair.
sense. Okay. Yeah. So essentially, scale.ai, but using
Yes,
Indians. That's
that's the
the
play.
big idea.
That's the play.
One thing that I did not realize was why India hoards gold. And that is because apparently it's easy, not apparently, yeah, I have seen it with my eyes that it's easier to get a loan on your
Yeah,
gold versus getting a loan on your
yeah,
house. And because of the laws and because of like the culture or whatever, it's very hard to sort of recoup your money back by selling your property, the place where you live, right? It's very hard to do that. But gold is a very fungible thing that once you give it to me, I can probably give it to somebody else and get my money back in case you don't pay. So the gold loans are much easier and like cheaper and all whatnot. And that is why the primary savings method for India is gold, which is why Anmol is a genius for investing in jar. But another crazy stat I saw, not in the report. I don't know if it's in the report. Yeah, it's not in the report. But India's
yeah.
GDP has, or not just India, I think a lot of countries' GDPs have either remained stable or gone down if you compare them in gold.
Oh, interesting. So gold, the price of gold is growing faster than most economies.
Yes, for like 50, 30 years,
Okay.
50 years, 20
What
years,
about, what
some
about
number, some
Bitcoin?
big
What
number.
about Bitcoin? Has
Yeah, come on. Bitcoin went from 0 to 100K. You can't compare that. But I mean, so Bitcoin is obviously faster than anything else. But yeah, gold is like such a accessible thing for everyone. And I think that is why so many people sort of just want gold. Like the craziness for gold in India is like,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
why maybe it's just too
No, I
high.
think that I like there used to be those like crazy stats around how like housewives in India own more gold
Yeah,
than the entire country
correct.
of the United States or something like that. So I think
Yeah.
it makes sense why it is also such a great collateral, and also makes sense from like kind of the historical and cultural significance around like gold around primary means of savings, gold being used in weddings and other occasions and so forth.
So next is about manufacturing. I don't have anything about that. Do you
No,
have?
I
We don't know anything about manufacturing. Software की बातें कर रहा
DPI, आ गया UPI.
हूँ. So, just one quick thing in the manufacturing thing. Apparently, we've been imposing a lot of tariffs, and because of that, our domestic produce is getting good,
Okay,
and we have started exporting a lot of
yes,
things now.
yes.
For example, toys. We are exporting toys, which is a big W. We are exporting
I mean, we're yeah,
electronics.
yeah. Like I don't know if this is in the report, but like if you've seen like the iPhone exports in India, like
Hmm,
they've been
from India.
growing crazy. I mean, like I don't know the numbers, but
Don't think they have written iPhone
yeah,
specifically, but they have electronics as a
yeah,
thing.
and like last 1 to like 7 8 years, it's grown like 7x from like 5 billion in 2018 to 37 billion in 2025.
But again, it's not like a total W because Vietnam is
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
the one who has
yeah,
benefited a
yeah,
lot.
yeah,
Just that we have not been able to capture the difference, but essentially because of all the tariffs and all the embargoes on China, the manufacturing has
yeah,
moved out from China and it was supposed to go in somewhere
yeah.
else.
So Vietnam,
We were hoping it would be India. It did come to
but
India,
not.
but Vietnam is like the real
Yeah,
winner.
yeah,
But then that's this thing sort of tells me one thing, which is essentially you have to be in a growing market, and even if you're not like the best, you will still get
yeah,
something out
yeah.
of it.
But I guess like I mean, I don't know enough about the manufacturing sector to say like if Trump imposes retaliatory tariffs on India, what does that mean for certain sectors within manufacturing, and does that impact our manufacturing story even more, or
Makes sense.
where does it go from here?
I don't know also. Yeah,
You're
so
you're the best.
DPI, coming to DPI software.
UPI,
UPI, DPI,
another
so
great
many
year for
things.
UPI.
Okay, so DPI stands for what? Digital Public Infrastructure,
Yes, that is correct.
correct? Yeah. So we have things like Aadhaar, UPI, apparently Bhim. There's something called Digit,
Cohen,
E-Sanjeevani. I don't even know so many things. Covin, Covin was that drug, right?
no, Cohen was the. I thought it was
The
yeah, yeah.
app. Oh shit. Contact tracing. Okay.
ONDC.
Abha. ONDC is something that
Yeah,
I've heard. AA is I think account
yes,
aggregator,
yes.
correct? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like these are the things which comprise of the DPI of India, which is like digital
Public. So,
public
yeah.
infrastructure.
Like
Uh,
realistically, only like UPI has really taken off. Everything else has
correct.
seen like middling to limited
Aadhaar
success.
also.
But I guess Aadhaar was kind of yeah, the
Yeah.
Aadhaar was very successful. Like, but yeah, and UPI could only really be built on the backs of Aadhaar. Like having a unique identity for all of Indians helped build making anyone transfer money to anyone using just your phone number tied to your bank account.
Yeah, so as per the report, UPI transactions are still growing exponentially, and you can see like a proper
Yeah,
graph going like this.
up into the right.
Another thing that we can see is ONDC, which was like supposed to be a network to kill Swiggy, Zomato, is actually able to kill Uber. Like ONDC is like a common network for
Open network
providing
for
goods,
direct.
development commerce,
Okay,
direct commerce, some
digital
commerce,
commerce.
digital commerce. Yeah, so it's a network where everybody can list, and ideally if you list at one app, it gets listed everywhere. It's like a blockchain, something something. I don't know exactly how it works, but this is something that is there. Okay. Now ONDC, the number of retail orders has not really, it
Taken.
went
Yeah,
up
yeah.
like I think last year, but that number is not growing as good as quickly as the number of mobility orders. And by mobility, things like Namayatri is built on top of
ONDC.
ONDC
Is
and other things. And
Rapido also built on top of ONDC, or is it that's just a
no, it came
private?
before ONDC. I don't know if they've implemented or integrated
Got it.
ONDC later on for their. I don't know
Yeah,
that, but Namayatri for sure built on top of ONDC. Then there is Open Kochi,
which is
which is like a
the same.
similar
Yeah,
thing but
Kochi
in Kochi. So there are things like that, which ONDC. So I mean, it was built for retail, is what we thought, but it's not
really working.
working. But it worked out well
Yeah,
in
yeah. I mean,
mobility.
like if you see like I feel like we started hearing about ONDC for retail the same time like quick commerce started to getting like more popular, and like quick commerce has seen exponential growth, and ONDC for retail has seen like kind of
Yeah,
funded by
makes sense.
cashbacks, and once the cashbacks stop.
So one interesting theory I read about this was, if the market is in the expansion phase, which Uber and Ola and mobility was till I would say 2020, the suppliers are fine with the commission model. They are fine with whatever you want because you're getting expansion revenue, right? Once these things mature and they're not growing, let's say 100% year on year, uh, uh, what happens is now people are looking at their bottom line versus just the top line, the suppliers. And now they're looking for things where they can figure out, okay, how do I just increase my
Yeah,
bottom line?
but
And that is where things like Namayatri could have come in, and they would have said, okay, you give me a SaaS
yeah,
fee for accessing the platform, and I will get you
I
customers.
guess wasn't
And
that the whole point of ONDC with retail, where like instead of you paying 20% commission to Amazon, you list for free and don't have to pay any middleman.
correct, but retail is still like growing compared
I see.
to
Okay.
mobility. So you're still going to go and list on Blinkit because Blinkit in itself
Growing
is
so
going
fast. Yeah.
100% or
Yeah.
whatever number, I don't know. So you're fine to give Blinkit whatever 30%, 40% is what I'm hearing. Whereas 10 years down the line, that will not be the case. You don't want to give that much again because that you are also sort of discounting the
Yeah.
customer so that you gain customers, then you want to make money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that might not happen there.
Yeah.
Another thing that I saw was NPCI in March 2023 introduced an interchange fee of
Oh yeah.
1.1% on P2M
Yes.
transactions.
But this is
Uh,
only for yeah, P2M transactions on just credit, or
More than
for
2,000,
all, for debit as well.
more than 2,000 rupee
No, but on
for P2M transactions.
prepaid instruments. This is not
Correct, on
on
prepaid instruments. Yeah.
debit
So
instruments.
$4.1 billion is their potential revenue pool if they charge half a percent MDR on non P2P
But
transactions,
that is on
which is P2M
that's
transactions
assuming they do that on debit transactions, which I don't
as
think
well. Yeah.
they will
I don't think
ever.
that. Yeah.
What you have a better chance of happening is like if P2M transactions really take off for UPI on credit cards, or UPI on, or credit lines on UPI. So I don't know if you've heard of like Kiwi or Rio, but like
I have Tata
okay.
New,
So, but you do you use your credit card on UPI
the
yet?
card.
Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah. Tata New is.
there is some interchange and MDR revenue on that that can be made.
Mm,
Uh, I think now we just need to make credit more accessible and widespread on UPI for
yeah.
that to really take off, and like for all participants in the UPI ecosystem to be able to make money. Because
Mm,
in the last 10 years, the only way you could really make money was by cross selling other financial
mm.
services.
So the next thing that we saw was India's saving surplus is affecting equities in India. So apparently 2% of savings were like in equity for India. Now they have sort of reached 5%. Like it's growing pretty quickly, and all the Zerodhas growth of the world are like benefiting from it. But yeah, still it's very low. It's five
Yeah.
percent in equity, 51% in property, 16%
Gold,
in gold, 12% others. Bank deposits 14%. This number has not changed, by the way, in the last 10 years.
cash.
And cash is 3%. So, yeah, this was one thing that was there. But the bigger shock, probably the biggest shock of the whole report for me was, did you know India is the largest derivative
Yes, I
market
did
in
know.
the
I
world?
did know because last year I was tracking the space, and like I think I tweeted about this, but a lot of futures and options trading happens in India, both retail, a lot of like foreign institutionals also kind of piggyback on like Indian retail traders losing a shit ton of money. And you've had all these like finfluencers making YouTube channels and courses on like how to make money with options trading, and a lot of people get into that and they like lose money. Uh, so it is a like do you know, Agabi, do you know the average duration of how long in a person in India was holding a futures and options contract?
Some
No,
hours.
9 seconds.
What?
Uh, yeah,
Why? I guess it's good that India banned
yeah.
crypto.
Um,
Oh my
yeah,
god.
yeah.
Shit. But yeah, 9 seconds.
No, I remember like we can cut this from the pod if it's too spicy, but I spoke to a company building a product in like the F&O a trading space. This was kind of like when the regulations were getting a little more stricter, and he had previously worked for one of these like opinion betting companies where like you bet on a certain outcome. And
Hmm.
I asked him like why he was building in the space, and his answer was essentially like, this is opinion betting but without 28% GST.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I also feel like it's just gambling at
Yeah,
this point,
yeah,
nothing else. It's just pure speculation. Why would you have over 9 seconds? Oh my
yeah.
god.
Uh,
Okay, so the total number of FNO contracts in India 2024 in billion, okay, are 155.2. Okay, the next that I see in this list, I don't know if like it's just list of order
yeah.
or not, but next I saw is US, C is US, okay, and that number is 7.8. India is 155.2. It's 7.8 for US.
20 times. Yeah.
Brazil is also a gambling
Yeah.
addict
Yeah.
country. They are at 7.6
Yeah. Yeah.
billion.
No, I think that's why
This
like
is
the regulators have introduced new regulations in the space to kind of curb this number way down. I don't know
correct.
what those actually are, but we will see what the numbers look
By,
like next year.
by the way, number of FNO investors exponentially growing up.
Really?
And the headline is retail participation is the one basically which is
Yeah.
driving all this.
Oh wow.
They but they lose
Yeah.
90%. More than
Yeah.
90% of participants lose money in a
An
year.
average of 1 lakh loss.
Yeah. So please, if you are doing this, just know that these are the stats.
Wow. I can't believe it's like almost 12 million people now. Like that's like
Yep.
that must be like what Zerodha's user base also looks like, right? Yeah.
Correct. Zero the agro. All these companies done. I think all of them have this as a feature, and pretty sure this is the one that's making them
Yeah.
money. By the way, SEBI is doing some things
Yeah.
about it, and the impact has been seen. Like the number is going down now post. So in December and January, essentially, the numbers have gone down. Let's see what
Yeah.
happens. But yeah, this was the most shocking thing that I saw. The next thing we have consumption.
India consumes a lot. Or actually
Yeah. So
it yeah.
India is primarily a consumption economy, is dominant driver. Out of the whole GDP, 60% is consumption. Out of that, there are about 55% retail consumption and 40% services consumption. In the services itself, there is 50% is groceries. Sorry, in retail, 50% is groceries, 10% is fashion, 7% is restaurants, $70 billion restaurants, uh, and there are other retails, rest of the things. And we can also split this in three other ways, but one that I found the most interesting, we can split the consumption in three ways. The one that I found interesting was
Offline.
offline and
Yeah.
online.
Yeah.
So online is just
Yeah.
7%, just
Yeah.
7% of the retail consumption in
Yeah.
India.
Yeah. And if you look at like
Could you believe?
quick commerce, that's gonna be another just like 1% or like 1%
Yeah,
of maybe not even 1% of all of India's retail consumption is
consumption. Yeah, I don't think it's
yeah,
1%, but hear me out. Uh, the 7% retail consumption comes out to be $77
yeah,
billion, 1.1 trillion, 7%. $77 billion yearly we spend online on
yeah.
retail. Retail includes groceries, FMCG, food, all of these
Mintra,
things. Okay. So this comprises of things like Swiggy, Zomato, Flipkart, Amazon, Myntra, all the D2Cs that
Misho,
we know, Meesho, everything. The urban company is not the part of
yes,
this. Uh, this is $77 billion. Okay. For comparison, AirPods, not AirPods, sorry, Apple
yeah,
Watch. Apple Watch sells $40 billion a year.
yeah.
So that's like half of this, just
But
the
like
Apple
if you
sells.
see the US economy, it's still like massively larger than India.
But yeah, but I'm just trying to put things in
I know.
perspective. How much Apple
Yeah,
is, how big
yeah,
Apple
yeah.
is. But essentially, yeah, this was something that I'm like, oh my god.
And I mean, I think it's something that like India has always been dominated by unorganized retail and like what typically we'll call like general trade. So like you'll have your like small panwadis to your kirana stores to your like stalls to your maybe like slightly more formal kirana stores. Um, and then as you kind of start getting a little more formal, you have like your modern trade stores. So your like big bazaar hota tha ek zamane mein, and Delhi
Correct.
has their chain of like modern bazaar. There's food hall, food stories, nature's baskets. But even like modern trade comprises of a very, very small segment. A majority of commerce and retail in India has always been driven by unorganized. And like making inroads to that has seemingly been harder than a lot of other categories, which is why you've seen India still be largely unorganized. And while like
Yep.
organizations happening in a lot of other sectors, like broadly retail, it's still slower.
On per capita basis, India's consumption doesn't look as good, but on average, it looks like
Total.
on
Yeah,
cumulative,
yeah,
it looks
yeah.
good, and it's growing at like a very good number, good percentage, 7.2%, 10 for the last 10 years. We have been growing our consumption revenue
Yeah, yeah.
essentially, which is like higher than US. US is at 5%. China is at 7.1%. India is 7.2%. Germany 1%. Japan less than
-%.
sorry, minus two
Yeah,
two
yeah.
percent.
In a lot of things, India is kind of like severely underpenetrated. So when you look at like credit card adoption, only 3% of India has credit cards. When you look at mutual fund penetration, India only has 21% that is penetrated. When you look at two-wheelers, we are lower than Vietnam and Indonesia and China, but like a factor of 2 to 3x. When you look at ACs, despite how hot North India is, only 8% of Indian households have ACs compared to 90% in the US and close to 100% in China. And like, I think like eventually it all comes down to like India cannot be looked at a angle of a large homogeneous country. It's kind of like certain slices of India um, purchase, consume, save, spend their time very, 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 very different. Do you want to talk about India 1, 2, 3 or
Correct. So essentially, that's like the crown jewel of Indus.
Valley?
What is Indus Valley? Indus Valley report. This is actually the thing that Veerdas tweeted out, which was India 1, India 2, India 3. How Blume looks at the consumer stack. So India 1 essentially is closer to Mexico in terms of consumption, the money that they make, and all those things. Then there is
So
India
I guess
2,
let's
which is
maybe
like
like describe also like India 1 is about 30 million households, about 140 million people, and you have per capita income of about $15,000, just to kind of give you a context, which is
correct.
roughly like 6x the average per capita income of the country.
Then we have India too, which is similar to Indonesia as the country. There we have 70 million households, 300 million people, and $3,000 per person. This is like the aspirant class, and so India one is consuming class, which constitutes market for most of the startups in India. Most startups start in India one, like Cred, uh, Nika, Zerodha, and then they
Move to
expand to India two
yeah,
essentially. India two is the place where they are like heavy consumers but reluctant payers. So they consume OTT a lot. They do gaming a lot. A lot of lending and edtech are sort of done for them, and those kind of things. Then we have India three, which is like closer to the sub-Saharan Africa. Uh, these are the people which startups can't really
yeah,
monetize
yeah. So,
very well. There are 205 million households, a
yeah,
billion
yeah.
people
So that's
which are living at $1,000 per
yeah,
person.
and like I guess like the rough split is like 10% of the population is India 1. You have
Hmm.
about two-thirds of all discretionary spend in the country go in that category. India 2 is about 20% of the population. One-third of the discretionary spend happens in that category. And then India 3 is 70% of the country and no discretionary spend happens. Digital service you can basically never sell to an India 3 population user at this point of time because they
Yeah,
barely make enough money to
they're still at like the lowest point in the
yeah, yeah,
triangle.
yeah,
I forgot
yeah,
the triangle name, but essentially, yeah, they're still figuring out
yeah.
food and stuff.
The I guess
Um,
maybe worrying thing as we go into like kind of the India consumption story is that the India 1 segment is not really like increasing. So like the number of households is roughly staying the same. What is happening though is India 1 is getting wealthier And you can see this because of how the consumption patterns and the buying behavior for India One is changing. So India One is buying more luxury and more expensive houses. So over the last, I think, 4 or 5 years, if you've seen in the largest cities in the country, the number of houses that cost over 1.5 crore have increased, and the number of houses that are 50 lakh and under have comprised of a smaller percentage of all houses sold. If you look at luxury smartphones, they are growing at the highest rate, and people aren't buying budget or affordable smartphones anymore. But it's also kind of like people are spending more on expensive things and less so on affordable and budget things. And but regardless of what is being purchased, this is all still India One. And you see it
Correct.
in cars as well. There's more SUVs being purchased instead of sedans. You see it in the number of taxpayers in India has actually gone down, but the average tax paid by a person has also increased. So it's kind of like India is getting richer, but kind of the number of people that are getting richer is not really increasing. It's just the top
Yeah.
10% of the country is kind of
Correct.
largely seeing
And
that.
another thing that this report sort of shows is that the consumption that was increasing is not because like of the widening base, but it's because India One and India Two essentially are spending more rather than like we increasing the number of people who are
Yeah, yeah,
spending.
yeah.
So it has like a bunch of stats around
I
that.
mean, one
Uh,
another thing is like the reason why our saving rates have kind of reduced, and why kind of like our household debt has increased is because is all fueling this increase in consumption by largely India One.
So India One's high share of consumption shapes the Indian consumer market. They sort of go on to show that like we have more premium cars, more premium bikes, and all of things are going towards the premiumization of economy, where you want like let's say Zudio is trying to portray itself as a premium um, clothes brand and whatnot. Everything's sort of moving towards premiumization, and that's because people sort of want to signal, I guess, that they are part of that
Yeah.
India One group. Also, India One essentially has given rise to the experience economy that we had discussed all the way in the first episode, two two episodes ago. But essentially, yeah, I mean, the whole Coldplay frenzy, all the tickets and all those things for all the events, all the concerts, whatnot. For example, Lavon in Ice Cream Kitchen just opened up 3 4 days ago, and there's like a huge line over there. Why? Right? It's just because of that they are looking it as an experience that's a premium experience, and then essentially India One essentially is standing in line to get like an ice cream that is not built for the Indian masses.
Well, I mean, if
So
you're building in city like Bangalore in Indranagar, then you're not building from the masses.
yeah, that's as India One as it gets. Yeah. Yeah, so travel. One stat that I had taken out for travel was the travel abroad has gone from in 2015 from 1.3 billion to 31.7 billion US dollars.
Yeah.
Market share wise, it went from
Well,
0.8% of all
yeah,
the
yeah.
remittance to 53.8%,
But I think there's something
0.6%.
wrong about this, because I think previously not all of travel expenses were counted under LRS. Yeah,
Maybe,
because it could not
but
be this like
no, if you look at people around
yeah,
us,
yeah,
right? Before, when I was growing up, if anybody wanted to take a vacation, it would be Mount Abu, it would be Nainital, it would be Ladakh. Now, people around us, they are like Vietnam, Singapore, Indonesia, Bali, all
yeah,
those
yeah,
things, right?
yeah, yeah.
Mauritius.
I mean,
So
and
the honeymoons have changed from
yeah,
Goa to all the
yeah.
exotic
But
locations.
like I guess like even
It's
if you see like the report has like a distinction between FY20 and FY24, and just in those 2 years, travel has gone from like
for
37% of all um, LRS to over
253.6,
50%.
which is again it. I think it's also because of the
Yeah,
COVID
yeah, spike.
revenge and whatnot. But yeah, 37 to 53 actually is something which is believable for me, because like people around me
Yeah.
specifically, they just travel outside of India now. Like that's their travel. They don't travel in India anymore.
So fair, fair. But I guess like I mean like our tourism infrastructure isn't really much to speak home about. Like I mean, if you've seen, like I don't know if you've been to Vietnam. I haven't been yet, but like the hotels seem way cheaper than like
So these places
you get a lot
are
more.
less chaotic
Yeah, yeah,
than India,
yeah,
I would
and
say,
then you get like a
for
lot
sure.
more value out of your money.
Another thing that we saw was the cities are now moving towards gated communities, and again, this is uh, because of the spending habits of India.
Yeah,
One,
yeah,
they don't like the civil lines concept where, like, essentially I grew
yeah.
up. They want like a gated community where they are surrounded with their bubble, and they just sort of
You
being
should
like that.
actually. I don't know if you've read this piece by Manu Joseph. That's in the report, but it kind of phrases it really well. Where like rich Indians are trying to escape India by living in these gated societies. So like they want to live, you want to be in India, but you want to like be away from all the halchal and noise of India, and you kind of want to be in this nice gated society where you are kind of removed from a majority of the country. And Bloom worked with Mygate to get some data on kind of these gated communities because Mygate is one of
Crazy
the platforms that like helps. It's kind of like an operating system for these gated communities.
societies there.
But in 2024, um, gated communities drove like over 50% of the country's consumption expenditure, which was like
In the top 50 cities.
okay
In the
in the
top
top
50
50.
cities.
Well, like
Huh.
most of consumption in India is driven
Yeah.
by the
Correct.
large cities.
Correct. But like the long tail is so long that at least they have some
Okay,
meaningful. But
okay.
but yeah,
Okay. In the top 40 cities, um,
50.
gated communities drove almost 60% of total consumption expenditure, which was like mind blowing to me that you have like these little bubbles and pockets all over India that is driving a majority of all commerce. And
Correct. And
like you kind of start seeing this in terms of like when startups look to build, like when people are pitching me when they're building like an India one startup, now they tell me, oh, I just need to focus on 60 pin codes. If I win those 60 pin codes, like that's all I really need to care about to build like a massive IPO-able business, which is like
yeah.
a little shocking, but just shows you like how India is.
But because there are only 60 pin codes, I think that is why Blinkits can
Yeah,
survive, Zepto can survive, because they don't have to have like a huge attack factor. They can just focus on these
yeah.
things.
Looking at the per capita consumption spend in these gated communities, just in the last 4 years, it has grown 1.5x, which like just again shows like in the last like decade of how like India one has really been getting significantly richer and driving a lot of the consumption growth in the
Yep.
country.
Another interesting stat that I saw was deliveries per gated household per month.
Yeah,
2000 it was, 2020 it was 10 deliveries a
yeah,
month per
yeah,
household. 2022 it was
yeah,
16. In 2024 it was 23
yeah.
deliveries per month per household in a gated community.
That's like
Crazy.
almost. I think like by 2020,
Almost a delivery
yeah,
a day.
by 2026, 2027 will be like a delivery a day in these
Yeah.
societies. I mean like
So
most like a lot of my friends, I'm sure similar for you in Bangalore, like you're at least getting like something on Blinkit almost every day.
yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. Of all the expenditure, I think that these communities are doing, 26% essentially are online expenditures. So I think it's like a big market for startups specifically in India.
I wish a lot of these like statistics on penetration and like how consumption in India is happening, we were able to get like India specific values because then I feel like that's a lot easier to compare India with a lot of other countries when you know, okay, like EC penetration in India one is actually like maybe it's actually like 60%, and
Hmm.
like then like you can do a much easier apples to apples comparison of India with like other global peers because it's primarily that segment that's kind of driving a lot of
Makes sense.
consumption and activity in the country.
And look what we have here.
What we have here now,
We have a tweet by Anmol Many. So the tweet essentially goes, Ritesh Banglani, again, somebody we had mentioned in the last
yeah,
pod,
they,
he tweeted, they want, so talking about US, because they were talking about Denmark. So they want highly skilled people without immigration. Two, they are open to acquiring countries. Okay, hear me out. And then Anmol responds with, the India is the 51st state. This meme has gone too far. So
and right
the India is the
after this,
51st state essentially
right after
means
this
that,
tweet, America started deporting Indians. So I don't know, I don't know
right.
what to say about the
Yeah,
entire
but what,
situation.
okay, just give
Well,
context
okay,
to
okay.
people.
Well,
What is India?
one of it.
51st state.
Well, I think like there's always been this meme that like South Delhi, South Bombay, I don't know what part, Indranagar circle of Bangalore is like people are more aware of what's happening in the US than their own countries. And
Country.
you like, I've tweeted a lot about this because I've lived in both SF in New York, in Delhi, and spent enough time in Bangalore. But like, people are kind of doing the same thing in all these countries. Like, you have pickleball, you have run clubs, you have farmers markets, and like, you could drop someone in Sobo or SF or Bangalore or Delhi, and they might be living the entire kind of similar lifestyle in both countries. Uh,
Hmm.
so it was just kind of a meme poking that like these areas of India are basically an extension of America and American pop culture.
Interesting. So you got in on the report. Is that why we are
Of course,
going through
that's
the
only my first tweet. You missed the second one.
okay? Let's reach there
Yeah.
organically. Anyway, section two. Now the section is about Indus Valley. So till now we were talking about India as a country, as the whole thing. I think now it's about the startups in India and how does anything sort of affects us.
Yes. And so, kind of starting off with like the first part of it is kind of largely talking about like funding trends in the country and how they compare to some of the other parts of the world. So um, I think venture capital globally saw this huge uptick in 2021 when COVID happened, money became free, VCs were investing in every single thing. Like the US went from $176 billion in venture capital deployed in 2020 to $363 billion of capital being deployed in venture capital. By 2023, that had dropped down to 152 billion, so lower than 2020. But then in 2024, US was back up to 191 billion, so still not like COVID highs, but like kind of getting kind of we're on an incline in the US, and the US at least has kind of all been driven just by AI. If you look at some of the other countries, like China went up from 61 billion to 85 billion from 20 to 21, but it has continually started going lower. So in 2023, it was 54 billion. In 2024, it was 38 billion. And when you look at India, it kind of saw that boom like the US. So in 2020, we were 14 billion in terms of venture capital investments. In 2021, it went up to 42 billion. In 2023, it dropped back down to 12 billion. And then last year, there was about $14 billion worth of investments. Unfortunately, what has been happening in India, or I guess, I don't know if it's unfortunate or fortunate, but if you look at the last 6 years, um, the amount of venture capital has largely been increasing. Like you had COVID with the pull forward. moment, India kind of dropped back down, but then we're kind of on the rise again in 2023 and 2024. But the number of companies being funded has been still growing down. So in 2020, in between 2018 and 2020, an average of 2,300 companies raised capital. In 2021, 2022, that had gone up to 3,400. In 2023, that was down to 2,600 or 2,200. And then last year, only 1,700 companies raised capital. So there's more capital being deployed, but a lot fewer companies raising capital. And like you might say, oh, Anmol, that's only happening because the big rounds are not happening anymore. The big rounds have slowed down. But if you actually look at kind of stage-wise breakdown from like 2020 to 2024 across late stage, largely early stage, and seed stage, the amount of venture capital that's being invested in companies has all been on the decline, which is like an interesting thing to say, where a lot fewer companies across stages are raising capital, and the average round sizes across all stages are going up. And that's why in kind of the seed stage, for example, term was coined in the US, the mango seed has kind of emerged. The mango seed states that a mango seed is much larger than most seeds from other fruits. And what you've started seeing in the US in the late 2010s to India now is seed rounds are often upwards of like $1 to $3 million. And as of 2024, half of all seed rounds were mango seeds, so 3 million plus. And on the flip, seed rounds under $1 million have gone from over 50% in 2018 to under 20% now. So seed rounds are getting larger, or the percentage of seed rounds are getting larger, and the number of seed rounds are almost decreasing or like staying the same. Like, do you have any thoughts on these? I know I have a couple more, but
I like the term
yeah,
mango seed. It's like it has a nice ring to it.
yeah,
But I had no idea before reading the report that this is
yeah,
happening. I thought like just like all the time is just there are some rounds that are very large for seed
yeah,
rounds, and then there are some rounds which are like small,
yeah.
just like it has been forever. As per the report, it says this is led by second-time founders and elite operators.
So
And when they raise money, they essentially
yeah,
tend to raise a lot more money
yeah.
than
I do
somebody
think
like.
it's kind of like it's larger than that, because I think what's ended up happening is a lot of the, like, if you look at seed, like India's seed funds in 2017, 18, 19. So when Blume was on their second or third fund, or Stellaris had just started, or 314 had just started, or India Quotient was on their second fund. The fund sizes were a lot smaller. And invariably, because of COVID and because of capital deployment, they were able to raise larger funds. Now, when you have larger funds, you have to invest larger sums of money. If a $400 million fund is writing a 250K check, that's not like a great use of their capital. They want to write $2-3 million checks. So as a result, the seed funds have become larger, and they need to figure out where they're able to buy 10-15% of companies and deploy 2 to 3 million at the same time. So as a result, you've seen funds being a lot more comfortable investing in operators who've already run businesses or are second time founders, and kind of your first time founders have had a harder time raising capital at an inception point. They're able to do so when they're able to kind of hit some sort of traction at an early stage. But I think the other thing that's missing, even though we do have a lot of micro VCs, there's not as many micro VCs that are leading now. I think there's a couple of folks who do a fantastic job with this, with like Better Capital and All In and Titan, and the report lists a couple other, but I think we're still missing a lot of micro VCs to lead rounds and writing
Yeah.
participatory
So
checks.
essentially, what a micro VC is because of all the things that you explained, like seed rounds have gotten bigger, but there is still demand for smaller seed rounds because not everyone is able to
Yeah.
sort of
Raise 2 million off the bat.
raise money at
Yeah.
that, and not everyone wants to do as
Yeah.
well. So there are like many founders who don't want to do that. They will happily take a smaller check, but like that sort of retains them more autonomy or whatever, right? And so this is where the micro VCs have come in to sort of fill out that
Yeah.
gap. Essentially, it's not technically a micro VC because let's say in few years this micro VC will sort of graduate to a,
Larger.
yeah, macro VC. I don't know what's the opposite, but so there's the report lists like a bunch of them. Anmol's untitled venture is also there, by the
I,
second
I, I
appearance.
like to call us nano VCs. We're not even micro yet, but inshallah we'll become
Okay.
micro VC soon.
So by us, you mean yours,
Yeah, yeah,
your
yeah. Untitled
untitled.
with
Yeah. So nano VCs and micro VCs are there, right? Essentially, they're ideally investing between 100 to 500K. Obviously, some are investing lower. Some are probably even at this stage investing more than let's say half a
yeah.
million. But yeah, essentially, this phenomena, whatever you described, has given a rise to micro VCs.
Well, the other thing in this section that really was interesting to me, I don't know if you saw the section around like how long it takes companies to raise their next round, but there was a super interesting distinction between companies who have been backed by a seed fund. I assume the funds here is kind of like your India Quotient,
Axel.
Blume, 314, and like your smaller micro VCs and smaller funds, versus a multi-stage firm, which is your Peak, Excel, Nexus, Elevation, Lightspeed, and Z47, previously known as Matrix. But
Wait, what?
Z47,
Matrix changed
yeah.
its name. Oh, TIL. Okay.
Breaking news on the podcast. Uh, but the interesting thing was between 2016 and 2024, companies that go from a seed to a Series A that are backed by a seed fund take a lot longer to close their rounds than someone from a multi-stage fund. So in 2016 it was roughly the same with like 14 and 15 months, and in 2024 it took a seed fund backed company 33 months to raise a Series A, which is almost 3 years, and it took a multi-stage backed company only a year and a half.
I think one stat that might be missing from this is what percentages of them have been able to
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
raise Series
yeah.
A. From what have heard, I have no idea about this thing, but in case your first investor is not again putting money in the next round, maybe the round doesn't materialize, is what I've
Yeah.
heard. I don't know
Well,
what
I
how
guess
true,
that
whatever.
is I think that like people talk about the signaling risk of a multi-stage firm investing earlier. For example,
That's the word.
if Peak is investing in your seed round and not leading your
Hmm.
Series A, that kind
Hmm.
of might send a bit of a negative signal to the market, like, oh, why is Peak not doubling down on this company? There are obviously exceptions to this signaling risk, but I know people are often
Spooked by it. Yeah, so yeah, this was also something that I had no idea. I just read the report and I was like, whoa, 33 months is like too high. And then from Series A to Series B, also 30
yeah,
months. So like 6 years, sort of six, 5 years, sort of you spend to get from seed to Series B.
it's a grind.
It's a grind. Okay, late stage remains lackluster except in 2021 and
Yeah,
2022. Late stage funding is not really that high.
yeah,
And now India is like the third largest unicorn factory. Like I think after US and China, obviously.
yes,
US has more than 1,000 unicorns. China has 245. India has 117. But the number of new unicorns have gone down per year. So 2020 we made 14.
yep.
India. US made 88. 2021 India made 44. 2022 India made 23. 2023 India made 2. Zepto and what is this? Incred Finance. And then 2024 we made 6. Aether, I don't know which one.
Moneyview, Aether,
Uh,
Rapido, Porter, Perfios, and Krutham.
Krutrim. Yeah. So interestingly, there were only 4 companies that were made unicorn in 2024 in
Yeah.
China when we had 6. Some weird things going on there. But yeah, essentially, we made like 6 unicorns last year. The number was 44 in 2021. Can you imagine? Like, it's just unfathomable at this point. So, but do we really have 117 unicorns?
Well,
Is the
not
next slide.
really, because like 20 of the unicorns are now valued under $1 billion.
Yeah.
You also have, so like if you look at our like unicorn stack, you have three unicorns who are bootstrapped. So that's
Hmm.
Zerodha, Zoho, and Mu
Zoho,
Sigma.
New Sigma.
You have seven unicorns that were acquired, which was Big Basket, PhonePe, Blinkit, and Flipkart, and then a couple that got acquired for less than $1 billion. One
Hmm.
MG, ShopClues, and Citius Tech. Then you have about 15 unicorns that went public. Most of them are, or a lot of them are still valued greater than $1 billion. So your Swiggy, Zomato, Nykaa. But then some of them are valued less than $1 billion, like MobiKwik, Mamaearth, and Blackbuck. But about 73 of them are still unicorns in they're going steady, like Cred, Postmates. They aren't looking to go public in the short term.
Postman,
Postman,
not
sorry,
Postmates.
sorry. Postmates was
Your American gets in
yeah, yeah.
from time to time.
And then you do have a lot of unicorns who are looking to go public in the near future with Aether, Zepto, Grow, and Razorpay.
And then there are 20 companies that were
Yeah.
more than $1 billion and now they are not. Biggest example is
Hashtag
Byju's.
Byju's, and a recent example of the Good Glam company. I don't know if you've been seeing about all their struggles.
So, and then yeah, a lot of companies are now reversing, like flipping back to India from US because I think the IPO markets, oh sorry, the public markets in India are like much better for the tech companies. They're more hungry for tech companies, and tech companies obviously believe that they will get like better
Yeah,
valuations, more money in India, and so they are like flipping back to India, and for that they are paying a lot of
yeah,
taxes. For example, PhonePe
a
paid a
billion, of
billion
course.
dollars, $1 billion in taxes.
Uh, I mean, and like
Crazy.
because it's kind of like these companies are already like unicorns by the time they look to flip back, and so you have to pay at least a couple $100 million, which is
Yeah.
just
So the stat next to it is PhonePe tax bill would make it the 10th highest tax paying company in India.
well, but that goes all to Uncle Sam. It's being paid to America, not India.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Yes, yes, yes. So
interesting.
you have
I
to
did not
pay
know that.
tax on kind of like your valuation in the US when you flip back to India.
So you sell the company in the US and then you buy a company
I
in
don't
India.
know
Is that
what the
what's
process
happening?
actually looks like. I do know the tax bill is in the US.
Oh my God. Damn, that's not good. I mean, not good for
Yeah.
India.
Okay.
Say.
So I don't know too
Uh,
much about venture debt, so let's skip that
yeah.
section.
So venture debt, yeah, it's just loan. At least what I think. So
Uh,
there were IPO numbers. I think specific numbers are not really that uh, interesting. Honestly, it's just that IPO in India specifically is a very attractive
yeah,
thing for tech
yeah.
companies because historically we've not had a lot of tech companies or the new age companies that have been listed in India, and so people want to sort of buy them because they're all something that you're already using. For example, if you're using Zomato on a daily basis, like your brand recall for that Zomato will be very high, and then and also like a lot of India's savings is now going into equities, so the markets are also very high,
Yep.
even though like they're falling from like past few days, but essentially they are on high. The markets are expensive and companies want to obviously take a slice of that pie, capitalize on that whole thing. So essentially venture funded companies are trying to get to IPO in India, and that has like become a frenzy right now. By the way, I've met like a couple of investment banking friends of
Okay.
mine a few weeks ago, and essentially any small company is now being offered to go IPO if they meet like the small
The
company
SME, the
criteria.
SME.
Yeah. So Jaipur specifically, like a bunch of companies have just come up on
Okay.
IPO.
I mean, like you
Uh,
had last year that the Yamaha dealership in Delhi
yeah.
going public.
Crazy. So yeah, the story is that there was a dealership with two stores where one was not even functional, and it was a Yamaha dealership. Like they were not making like their own products or something like
Yep.
that, and they went for IPO and they were like I don't know, but more than 5 times subscribed,
Wow.
oversubscribed. So people are just trying to make listing
Yeah,
engines.
yeah.
I think it's just going
No,
back
but
to the
I guess like
gambling.
you do have like some benefits of the SME IPO. Like there's this company, actually a Blume Fund One company called E2E Networks, and they were a cloud service provider company in their inception, um, and had built a strong relationship with Nvidia over the years. So they didn't get a lot of love from most VCs. So I don't think they ever raised another round after Blume, or I'm not sure if they did or did not. But they went public on the SME board in, I think, 2018, and then a couple of years later they got moved to the main board. And
Hmm.
like earlier this year, before the market dropped a couple, they became Delhi's first AI unicorn in the public markets. And
I thought they were from
no,
Hyderabad.
Delhi.
Oh,
Yeah,
Delhi.
yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, Delhi has the only real AI unicorn in India.
Yeah, Krutrim is not in
Yeah,
Delhi.
it is not.
Just
That's what I'm
FYI.
saying. The only real. Uh, so, but
Okay.
they later
Yeah.
started becoming like selling compute and GPUs and had access to NVIDIA infrastructure, and
Hmm.
kind of were the only AI stock in the Indian markets to some degree. So I think they largely
Yep.
benefited from that. So like some of these smaller companies who
So yeah,
can't raise other venture capital are able to go public on an SME IPO, and they had been profitable for several years, so kind of worked out for them.
correct. Um, I think SME IPO specifically is also very easier to sort of list in versus the other. So that is also one reason why I think it just we are getting so many IPOs in India right now. The next thing that we move forward to is like a sector deep dives, and they have two sector deep dives. One is uh, our favorite topic, quick commerce, and the other is another favorite topic,
Okay.
AI.
So let's
Right.
let's
So
let's take it off with quick commerce, or how Webhub
for the Blinkit boys,
from Better Capital puts it. I think he had this is a great quote. The quick India movement.
quick India. Yeah,
So I think the growth of quick commerce has been very obvious. Like everyone has seen it, but I mean, I was not a believer in the early days. I was not living in India at the time, and I was like, why the fuck do I need something in 10 minutes? Like आधे घंटे में आ जाएगा, मेरे को क्या फर्क पड़ता है?
but you are not a
No, I was
believer.
not.
Oh
I
my
was not.
God.
I
Oh,
was
I
I
was a
was
believer from
I
day
was
one
a big anti. I only became a believer in like as late as like 2023, when like
when Blinkit started.
no, this is kind of when I was visiting India in September in 2023, and I was like,
Huh.
oh, okay, this is good actually. But
Yeah, you can
like
get
just in gross order value in financial year 2022, quick commerce was 0.3 billion. In
300 million.
300
Yeah.
million. In 2025, it is $7.1 billion.
Caveat, it's
Yeah,
expected to be
yeah,
7.1, but still, I mean, it's just one
yeah,
quarter
yeah,
remaining. I think they can probably hit it and maybe
yeah,
more. So 24 times rise in gross order value in
yeah.
3 years. Crazy, yaar. Ye
Crazy.
to, this is just
It's kind of like I mean,
if you can get into one of the top three quick commerce companies in India, that's the best maybe wealth creation moment you
yeah,
have right
yeah,
now.
yeah. I mean, I feel like
No stress.
as someone who passed on investing or missed investing in Zepto before they went to IC, I feel like a bit of a dummy now.
Yeah, so that's your anti
That is my
portfolio. I think a
yeah,
very
anti portfolio.
yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, I mean that's crazy. 24 times in three
yeah,
years.
yeah. And I mean, like,
Uh,
just like half of Zomato's value is now pegged to just
Blinkit.
Blinkit, and like I mean, like all three top
Food
ones.
ordering has matured
Yeah,
now.
I mean
Like
the growth in that segment has kind of declined versus there seems like a lot of headroom in quick commerce left. How much quick headroom, I think, is yet to be seen. Like, I think the folks at Blume later on talk about how, like, they think that quick commerce might also kind of hit some scaling limits in terms of its TAM, if
India
it's an
one.
India one thing. I, for one, think that it might actually go beyond India one to a certain degree.
So you're that big of a
Well,
believer now.
kind of hear me out from my point of view, and I think someone had written a nice thread on this as well. But as you go to smaller cities in India,
Hmm.
e-commerce delivery times become even worse. So
Hmm.
Amazon can deliver in 1 to 2 days in Delhi, but Amazon in, let's say, Prayagraj maybe takes 3 to 4 days. Let's say Jammu takes 4 to 5 days. Um, if you are able to get the right kind of assortment in terms of the SKUs in Jammu, you can still deliver it in 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be just 10 minutes. It could be like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. But I would then rather just buy from Blinkit versus wait for 5 days on Amazon. And I mean, obviously,
Yep.
for the long tail, I will have to use Amazon. But Amazon is going to have to seriously upend its infrastructure and how they do warehousing if they want to deliver across India in faster times.
See, this is where I think if ONDC actually shines through, right? This is where it can be like the thing which propels people forward. And you know how?
I
If
don't know.
even the small, let's say, small
Yeah.
shops can get themselves listed on ONDC, and we get proper apps to sort of search from them, we can remove the inventory
I
problem, which is
let
like,
me hear me out. I disagree with you completely because what we have seen in the old grocery models, or like when grocers and big basket were not centrally locating their inventory and they were not being able to manage their inventory, they had no clue if a certain small store has something in stock or doesn't have something in stock. So your fulfillment rates for an order were always like 30 to 50%.
so I understand that,
Yes.
but that's a problem that will be solved. I know why, because I have like a couple of friends who are sort of taking that view that the problem is that the inventory data is not correct. Dunzo had the same
Yes.
problem, by the way, when we
Yes.
were ordering, that they will not have. But these guys are taking an approach from the ERP and the inventory management software point of
So we have a company that does distribution and sales for brands to Kirana stores and like small shops all across NCR. And like I've gone and visited a lot of them. Like there's no way these guys are adopting tech to manage inventory on like a daily real time SKU basis.
view.
I don't see it.
I think when the new generation takes
I
over,
disagree.
it will become
I
a
disagree.
thing. For
I don't think like I think you always need to have like properly managed inventory in some sort of situation. Like I don't think Kirana and smaller stores are going to be the ones to adopt it in the near future.
I think it will be like Uber or something like that, where the customer, the service provider accepts whether I want to process this order
Fair,
or not,
fair.
right?
But
At least they would know if
but
they have
then then
inventory or
then
not.
then you're gonna wait like 3 4 minutes just to get your order
Yeah,
confirmed.
it's not going to be 10
Yeah,
minute, but it's going to be 30 minute.
we will see. I don't think I personally don't see how ONDC is gonna do well here, but I mean, dekha
Yeah,
jayega. Uh,
Jai.
but I mean, like do you have a take on why quick commerce worked in India and did not work anywhere else? Because I have one.
I don't know about anywhere else, but obviously India, cheap
But
labor is
I will
there,
tell you, I don't think cheap labor is the reason.
density is there,
Yes.
the 60 pin codes thing is
Yeah.
there. Yeah,
Because I mean,
yeah, that's
I think cheap labor plus in every kind of polygon that Blinkit and Zepto serves, you have great population density, but also great disparity in terms of real estate. Like you have your camellias right next to it, you have a lesser developed area where it's cheaper to rent a dark store and put your inventory there to be able to deliver. In
hmm.
high income countries like the US and like New York, like even your warehouse is going to be so expensive wherever you put it in Manhattan. And then like the other reason, like Indians have smaller homes, so Indians have smaller
Hmm.
pantries. Indians have don't have as many cars. People don't go grocery shopping for longer periods of time. Indians don't plan ahead.
Maybe that is why we are sort of skipping the modern
Yeah,
trade as a
yeah,
whole,
yeah.
because modern trade is built for things where you have a car, you have a bigger home to store
Yes,
things. That's why we either have convenience stores or we have a quick
yeah,
commerce. Like, we are not changing our
yeah,
habits now.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think
Okay.
that's evident in the data that we might be leapfrogging modern retail,
Yeah.
and it will be interesting to
So
say where it goes from here.
so the next slide says Zomato is India's capex story.
Yes.
Essentially, they are trying to say that Zomato, Instamart, Zepto, they are increasing their dark store count by a lot, right? Blinkit, for example, this year they're supposed to have 1250 dark stores, which was 364 2 years ago. Instamart went from 421 to 1004, Zepto from 200 to
Yeah,
1050, like massive
yeah, yeah,
jumps.
yeah,
And they are in many more cities as
yeah.
well. Blinkit is in 85, Instamart 77, and Zepto 71
Yeah, I mean,
cities.
like the
Uh,
Blink is already in cities like I hadn't even heard about. Like I was meeting one of my companies, and he told me like they're selling in Bhiwadi, and I was like, I have never heard of Bhiwadi here. I was like,
you're
they
in,
have quick
uh,
commerce.
yeah, Bhiwadi, and yeah, I mean,
Have you been to
like
Bhiwadi?
you know, but I know
Okay,
of the
okay.
place. Yeah, do you know, like, you might know Bathinda and all
Yeah, yeah.
because you would have heard in like movies and
No,
stuff.
I have family from
Uh,
Punjab, so I know what Batinda.
oh, right, correct. Haridwar also is like a small city, but again, it's
Haridwar is
like
like
they are
a
known for,
religiously important
correct.
city.
You know, Jhunjhunu,
No,
Jhajjar.
Jhajjar I've heard
You
of. Jhajjar
it's in
has quick
Haryana.
commerce.
I think
Did
so.
you see
I don't
Albinder
remember
or
exactly.
someone tweet about it?
No, I'm just taking names of cities
Okay,
probably
okay.
you might not have. But yeah, I mean, so essentially, tongue-in-cheek comment that Zomato is India's capex story. They are the ones who are actually investing in all the capexes, and apparently they're hitting break even like very fast.
Yeah.
So as per their founders, Zeptos, 8 months
Okay.
in 8 months you
Break
get
even
break even.
on a store basis.
On the store basis, correct, not on the company basis, they have overheads, but store basis, like the store owner is making money. So the way I have understood, it's like a lot of the stores are given to, let's say, a franchisee
Yes.
model kind of a
Yeah.
thing, where I, as the owner of that location, will put the store there, manage it, and all those things, and will make money based on all the orders that are dispatched from there. So when I put, let's say, 10 lakhs to open a store, 10 lakhs, I don't think it's possible. It
I think it's
says
probably closer to
1.5
like
crores.
50 lakhs.
It says 1.5, sorry, with 4 crores spent on capex in 2022, 23 months to turn EBITDA positive with 4 crores spent on capex, and in 2024, EBITDA positive in 8 months with only 1.5 crores in capex. Okay, so let's say I spend 1.5 crores, I get my money back, in the sense I make
No,
1.5
no,
crores
no, no,
back
no,
in 8
no,
months. Yeah, EBITDA
no, no.
positive.
The store
Oh,
you
EBITDA break
break
even.
even.
Sorry,
Yeah,
break even. So per month basis pay. So post 8 months, essentially, I will not lose
yeah,
money.
yeah, yeah. So
Very close to
your
zero.
recovery cost will be longer, but
Yeah,
you stop losing money
got it.
lots sooner than.
Okay, yeah, sorry. This is EBITDA positivity. Yes, but yeah, essentially in 8 months, you become EBITDA positive. Like, for comparison, I think so. My wife Surbi has put in pickleball courts. I think she will take somewhere around 3 to 4 months of intense
Yeah,
effort to become EBITDA positive on her in her
yeah,
club
yeah.
facilities, that is. So, and that's going to be from, let's say, a founder level person, not like a third party franchisee doing it. So 8 months is actually not a
Yeah.
lot. And the gross margins are increasing. 2023 it was -4.5%.
No,
Now
this is
it's
contribution
around
margin,
3%.
not gross margin.
Oh, sorry.
Gross margins
Yeah,
is like their whatever
already.
take rate on the brand, which will probably be closer to like 20 to 30 or maybe like 20%. So like
Okay, explain contribution
okay,
margin.
okay. Let's go to the next slide and we can look
Hmm.
at the numbers and I can explain that.
Contribution margin is built on two key pillars: AOV and
Yeah.
take rate.
So like you have Blinkit's like gross order value. उसमें
Hmm.
से
Let's say 100 rupees ka I buy a
yes,
something,
उसमें से
shampoo.
X% goes to the brand, Y
Yes.
percent Blinkit takes as revenue. ठीक है, they will take their cut.
Yeah, which is around 19.5% as per the metrics I'm seeing on
Yes,
the
yes.
screen.
Out of which there is some that gets built up from what the user pays for delivery,
Makes sense.
plus handling fee, plus packaging fee. There is some that brands pay Blinkit in terms of ad revenue to get listed better on the site, or to show up in certain search queries, or kind
Yes.
of have like big placements on the
Yeah,
app. And then there's some
correct.
commission
So,
that they pay Blinkit,
hmm,
which is their
for being
take
listed,
rate.
yeah, take rate.
So that's what kind of breaks up to be Blinkit's contribution margin, I believe.
Yeah. So, as per the funnel that I'm seeing, it's Blinkit revenue is 19.5%, which of the 674 AOV is 131 rupees. Out of that, user that pays is 11, and 120 is the commission and ad revenue, uh, which then is split into costs and profit. So the costs are 5 rupees for discounts, 35 rupees for delivery costs, and then they have other variable
Which is
costs
like
out of
they're
which
like running the
61
dark
rupees.
store and
Yeah, correct. And then these are the costs, and so essentially the costs come out to be about 100 rupees from the 131. So their contribution profit is 31 rupees per order they are sort of
yeah.
making.
But this is
This is
on
growth.
a store level. So then
So
on the, I think, contribution profits, you kind of take the company's overhead. So right now
correct,
Blinkit is still losing money because the overheads and
are
capex
high.
growth expansion.
Developers are expensive.
Yeah.
Devel- What's
Hello,
up? We are
hello.
back again.
2 days in a row. Let's
2 days
go.
in a row. So
Uh,
essentially, we did not anticipate that this video will go so long.
yeah.
We ran out of resources.
Yeah. It's taken us longer to record this podcast than it took us to read the report. So
Yep, yep.
I think that's saying a lot.
Yeah, they
Uh,
just they just say something about our ability to yap.
yeah. Yeah. Serial yappers. Okay. So where do we leave off?
So yeah, we are now at the screen. We are now at the page where it says quick commerce works because India is a poor market for modern retail.
Yes. So I think we kind of touched upon some of these things in the past, but India's kind of like modern retail hasn't really penetrated India in the same way as it's done in like the US and um, the Western markets. And we are still primarily reliant on Kirana stores and a lot of unorganized general retail. There's a lot of reasons for it. Some of them being like we don't have high car ownership, so we don't drive to, or there's a very small percentage of the country that has cars and large pantries. So you can't really go to a grocery store and stock up for a month. Something that might be very common in the US. That's not how things work here. And also why you see a lot of FMCG companies kind of focus on like small or you're like sachet sized items when they're kind of selling in
India.
rural markets, for
Yeah.
example.
Sachet pricing is a very common thing anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like I don't know if other places also have something like this, but essentially we don't buy like a
In
bottle of shampoo. We
in
buy the
India,
sachet of shampoo,
yeah,
for example.
India and Pakistan, but I don't know about the US does
Bangladesh,
not
I
have.
guess, as well. Probably all the desi say,
Okay.
countries. So essentially, quick commerce works in India because we have low labor cost, but we also have a low rider cost with respect to the gross order volume, and the population density is very high.
Yes, and I think the thing that this is missing is that in each high density, high population area, you also have cheap real estate next to areas of very expensive real estate. So, like right next to Magnolias, you'll have the slums where you can have a warehouse, which is going to be very cheap to put up. In New York, for example, like this is why like quick commerce is very expensive there, because if you want to put a warehouse anywhere in Manhattan, you are paying the same price on roughly the same price on most blocks. It doesn't fluctuate quite as much as it would in India.
So
Uh,
In India, I guess the hyper locality matters more than the locality.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Got it. Okay, so as per the report, we are also getting a lot more non-perishable items. Perishable items are things like
yeah,
food, groceries, creams, and all those things which are like something you sort of run out of. But then obviously things like PS5 has been introduced in Blinkit. Phones are being sold on
Yeah.
Blinkit, Zepto, and whatnot.
What's the most expensive thing you've bought on Blinkit?
The most expensive thing I bought on Blinkit was, I think, some 8,000 rupees something.
Okay.
I bought like a game for a kid. And Flipkart Pay, it was, I think, a phone worth 45K or something. Flipkart
You
minutes.
bought a phone from Flipkart? Why
Flipkart
really?
minutes.
Why
Huh?
why why did you need a phone that badly?
I needed a phone and I was like, it's available right now, so why not just get it right now? So
Okay,
the price
fine.
difference wasn't much, like, honestly.
Okay. I think the most expensive thing I bought an air purifier on Blinkit.
Wow. Say.
Hashtag Delhi things.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so quick commerce essentially is growing like that, and they've now started adding private labels as well.
Yeah, so
Uh,
I guess like one way for like these marketplaces to kind of improve their margins is by introducing private labels, and like Zepto has done it with their they have a meat private label called Relish that's now apparently doing 18 crore in monthly revenue, up from 4 crores in just over a year, which is pretty impressive to see. And Swiggy's kind of joined the party with a couple of brands as well. And the reason why like kind of it makes sense for these marketplaces to do so is a brand is gonna pay a certain amount of its MRP to acquire the raw or finished material of products it's selling. So let's say like a brand is selling an item for 100 rupees net of GST. They're gonna spend like 20, 30 rupees for that product that they're selling. That's kind of like the raw material cost of the product they're selling for 100 rupees, which kind of leaves them with a gross margin of a certain amount and a net margin or a net margin of a certain amount after GST. On top of which they'll add like they'll have costing for what they would pay to a marketplace like Blinkit or Amazon. There'd be certain delivery charges, there'd be certain ad spend, and Zepto and Swiggy can kind of take that same cost of good without having to pay for certain things like ad spend as much or the commission to the marketplace because they are the marketplace. And so they can kind of like boost their margins and revenues by kind of building their own brands and doing that on these marketplaces.
Essentially, they're improving their margins,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. And the
And
other way to do that is by kind of expanding the kind of ad products they sell on Blinkit or Zepto or Instamart by having like banner ads and search ads and all different kinds of ad products that they sell to these brands.
it's not a news anymore, but like essentially all the quick commerce companies have now come into selling 10-minute food as well. So we have Bistro by Blinkit by Eternal, which is essentially Zomato. Then we have Snack by Swiggy, thankfully just Swiggy, and then we have Zepto Cafe. Beyond that, we also have Swish, which
The
is like a
Bangalore.
anti portfolio for me
Oh,
and I guess you as well,
yes, yes.
because I think they were building something else when
They were
they
building stablecoin infrastructure, and
had
I don't
one
think
heck of a pivot.
I was the right guy to. We were the right people to invest in stablecoin
Yeah.
companies. But I mean, this market's growing so fast that this report that just came out last week is already a little out of date because Zepto Cafe per the report is doing 75,000 orders a day, but Adit just tweeted a couple of days ago that Zepto Cafe had just crossed 100,000 orders a day, which
Wait, this
is
is per day. Oh my God, I thought this is per month.
no,
So
yeah.
they're the, oh my God, shit. So I thought 30,000 orders in December, then they grew impressively to like 50,000 orders in January, and then 75,000 in Feb. Oh shit, that's per day.
That's a lot. I think like Zomato does like 2 million a day.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So they're like 5% of Zomato?
Wow.
Yeah.
So, as per this report, it says Zepto Cafe is at the run rate of at least 10% of Domino's last quarter
Yeah.
revenue. Then, obviously, like these have become like a traditional marketplaces now, and they are like making money from ads. There are new services that are coming up in quick commerce. One of them is your portfolio company.
Yes, we got Slick, which is doing quick commerce for fashion. There's a company out of Bombay, I believe, called Snabbit that does quick commerce for home services, or you can kind of think of it as like urban company, but instantaneously. I forget if it's like 10 minutes or 30 minutes or 60 minutes. Like if you kind of like your toilet's clogged and you need a plumber, or AC blows out, or your light's not working and you just need someone to come and fix some stuff. Like it makes sense that this category would do well if you can figure out the supply demand match well and figure the economics to make them work. And then there's obviously Swish, which is a competitor to Snack and Bistro and Zepto Cafe. Any of these you want to deep dive on? I will give you my thesis for why we invested in Slick at least.
But before that, I want to know why is it like a requirement to your that your name starts with S?
Of course. S for speed.
S for speed. Okay.
Vaibhav and I were joking about this, I think on Twitter. For context, Vaibhav runs Better Capital, and I think he's investors in both Slick and Swish. Nabbit, I think, is just Nexus and Elevation.
So yeah, give me your thesis.
Okay,
I'm ready.
so I met these founders in the US, not Slick founders. But I met these founders in the US who were kind of telling me some like insane stats of how Gen Z women in the US shop. She was telling me that 40% of Gen Z women buy clothes online 1 to 2 times a week, and 80% of Gen Z women in America buy clothes 1 to 2 times per month. The one thing you need for quick commerce to really work is like you need the habit to shop on the platform to be fairly recurring, because if it's a service I just need once every 4 or 5 months, it maybe does not make sense to build out all the infrastructure to provide a use case. And at least what we've seen in the US, that like shopping frequently is certainly a behavior that has emerged amongst younger folks. And at least anecdotally, I've seen it, see it a lot in India as well. Like, I don't know if this happens at your home, but like I have a lot of friends who are like, there's like at least one package from Mintra or something coming every single week. And so anecdotally, the same trends we see in the US amongst Gen Z consumption of fashion and beauty and accessories seem percolating in India as well. And the only reason why I think fashion has a space to do better than a traditional vertical or traditional horizontal QCOM company like Blinkit or Zepto is, it seems like Blinkit and Zepto are great at selling the same product again and again and again and again, and like figuring out the supply and inventory, what do you call it, how much stock should we keep at what time for a certain product. But fashion, you definitely need a much wider set of clothes and SKUs, and especially in fast fashion, you need that to change every couple of months. Like if I'm seeing a style this month and I see that same style 3 months from now, I might not buy it. And so you need a constantly updated, fresh feed of clothes being sold on quick commerce that is just harder to do in the traditional Zepto, Blinkit, Instamart model. So we thought it would make sense for someone like Slick to try and go build it out.
So do you think like Slick will somehow give us clothes to wear on this podcast?
Well, next one in person. Next pod we if we can ask Akshay to sponsor the pod.
Okay. Anyway, moving on, like quick commerce is not something that has like been like a part of these small players. Now every giant in e-commerce like Flipkart, Amazon, even
Nykaa,
Nykaa,
Mintra,
everyone,
everyone.
everyone is now coming into quick commerce or
Yeah,
quickish commerce. Actually,
yeah.
not like 10
But
minute,
it,
but
it, it it makes sense because I think the core learning from quick commerce across the country has been, and this is a similar learning that like Amazon had in the US. Like when you move items to faster delivery times, the 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 conversion rates improve. So users are more likely to buy something.
correct.
And you saw the same thing. Amazon went from 5 day to 2 day to next day to same day.
Mhm.
And India, you just saw 5 day to 10
30
minutes. And
minutes.
then,
Yeah. And I think because of these things, FMCG loves it because it's FMCG is essentially the thing that you want like right now, right now. You will not order, let's say, bhujia from Flipkart because it's
yeah,
going to come like 6 days later.
yeah,
You're not going to be happy about
yeah.
that. you have guests coming, let's say in 30 minutes or maybe an hour, and then you need something, and either you go and run to the convenience store or you just order on Blinkit or any of the apps.
Yeah, and I mean it's impressive how much like quick commerce has really taken off for these FMCG, like even the like FMCG giants like HUL and Dabur and Parle, like where like quick commerce is becoming a large part of their total like online and digital sales already. It's a category that's only existed for 3 years, and you see like these massive FMCG companies kind of think about building this channel and allocating resources and personnel for this channel from already. Like there's going to be a lot of headroom to grow and kind of capture regular e-commerce from quick commerce, especially for FMCG companies, especially when you're thinking about like snacks and ice cream and sodas and like impulse purchases.
Essentially, quick commerce is again, as per the report, is the same thing for FMCG players like what modern trade is, which essentially that it takes up their distribution and make sure that they are like the main person for the distribution. So obviously they will end up charging more to
Yeah,
the supplier, just like how Zomato has done, just like how Swiggy has done for
yeah.
their food delivery, even like Uber had done for a while before, Namayatri sort of
But I
got
think
it.
that the important thing here, where it's like quick commerce is kind of even worse than the other marketplaces, is quick commerce currently is constrained by the number of SKUs each warehouse can hold. Everyone's just like bombarded with, oh, हमारा भी brand list कर दो, हमारा
Yeah,
भी
yeah.
brand list कर दो,
Yeah,
and
it's not like the infinite shelf space that Amazon wanted for
yeah.
its book.
So
There's a finite shelf space that can be allocated, and everyone's fighting for it.
yeah, and that's why I've seen like it even taking like a year to get listed on a QC site for some brands.
There's a slide in the report as well which says quick commerce operators have power, and they are not afraid to wield it.
तो मतलब सब साइड में इनकम ले रहे हैं कैटेगरी मैनेजर.
I don't know about income layer and or like they're taking bribes or whatnot, but essentially they have a lot of power, and whoever is the category manager will be like wined and dined for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, that
But even I think like even they are like also like kind of looking at brands who can like actually spend on ads and like
yeah.
are okay with spending on ads and being like, okay, we'll only list you because we know you have the money to
Correct. So
play.
I think it's going to end up being either like the most premium brands or the brands that have a lot of repeat purchase or a higher LTV, so that they can either of these can spend a lot. Then obviously dark patterns have also started emerging, which is something I don't know. Okay.
Have they, we have, is it a dark pattern? I thought we talked about a lot last podcast. How it's okay for Zepto to charge more.
Yeah. Correct.
Kind of rounding up this segment, like Bloom's still kind of like cautious about how big QuickCom can get. And
Correct.
I mean, I think they have like some valid concerns, like they show like how Jeffries had these estimates for how Zomato's monthly transacting users would continue to scale post their IPO,
Mm.
and that has not really played out. Like food delivery as a market has kind of tapered off. So like I think their concern is that like how big can QuickCom actually get? I hear that. I do think that like QuickCom can expand it to tier two and like maybe even beyond a little better than food delivery, because if you are able to get the assortment right, kind of tier 2 tier 3 smaller city, you're going to be way faster than delivering Flipkart. Like if you're in Delhi, Flipkart probably delivers in a day. If you are in a tier 2 or tier 3 city, Flipkart's probably taking more than 2 3 days to deliver. Even if you have quick commerce but it's like 30 minutes or 45 minutes, it's still a way better experience shopping there than waiting 3 days on Amazon. Or at that point you're just going to go to the local store and buy something instead. Like I'm sure like your average order value and basket size and delivery cost are all kind of important levers in this. But to me, there seems like there's more like room to go in quick commerce across India.
Yeah, but the thing with e-commerce is, especially in tier 2, tier 3 cities or villages for that matter, it enables them to have access to things that are not. there in that area. I think quick commerce doesn't really fix that problem.
Fair.
Uh, but yeah, another thing that we probably skipped, you might find interesting, is the kirana stores have essentially started feeling the punch,
Yeah, I mean,
the
of
pinch,
course.
the weight of quick commerce, and that they're essentially the number of orders are going down, the average order value is going down. They also used to do deliveries that has
Yeah,
gone
yeah.
down. Essentially, they're like being
Yeah,
squeezed.
that's kind of one of the things I'm concerned about the sector is that at what points do all the kirana stores start revolting and start demanding कि हमारा धंधा बंद हो रहा है, हम दुकान नहीं चला पा रहे हैं, इन क्विक कॉमर्स वालों को देश से निकालो. Because it's a very like I mean I'm sure they still comprise of a fairly large vote base that someone cares. Do you think that's
I don't know if
reality or
they are enough of a vote base for somebody to care, because they're spread out all over the cities.
but like the trade
They will.
unions or like are they not big parts of like these bodies?
I have to, let's say, I should go and talk to some kirana store owner to get their perspective on
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
Let's say in a locality of
Yeah,
5,000 people, there would be like two kirana store owners. So the vote bank is not enough to do
fair,
anything.
fair, fair.
One funniest tweet that I remember seeing in real time, sorry, was the one that was also shared in the report, which is,
Yeah.
so there's this woman called Soumya, handle is Bites of News.
Okay.
The tweet says, a friend in Gurgaon tells me tens of kids in her nephew's
Oh,
school showed up dressed as the exact same ghost for a Halloween themed fancy dress competition. And it was because, like,
yes.
that was the only Halloween costume selling on Blinkit in the area. This is India one in a nutshell.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like I mean,
Like celebrating Halloween,
yeah. It's like
ordering things from
I don't
Blinkit.
know if you seen those memes of like oh Gen Z women all wear the same clothes. Everyone's
Clothes,
wearing
yeah,
black jeans and a crop top.
yeah,
But this is the
same thing.
yeah limited SKU, so everyone converges to the same product.
Okay, so moving on to the next section, which is AI.
Okay, you're gonna have to lead this one because I'm very smooth brained about AI in India.
So essentially, India, honestly, everybody knows that we are not really doing much except probably on the application layer in India. There are maybe a couple of companies that are trying to build foundational models. We haven't really had a success like a DeepSeek
Yep.
level, or not even DeepSeek, like anything like Mistral level or something like that. We haven't found that yet. Other like the traditional leaders of technology in India, for example, Infosys and all, these guys have made it clear that they are not interested in foundational models. They only and only want to build out the application layer, because that is where the money is. And honestly, like, given the vibes of the past few weeks, people are essentially saying the vote is only in the workflow.
So I saw an interesting tweet by our friend Nirant yesterday. He said that like he's bearish on India's case for becoming like the app country of just making application layer things because we lack taste to make deep research or Claude code. Do you feel like
Yeah,
that's like I feel like it's changing, but I could see the case for that as well. Like, what's your thought?
India has never been the country which has made like the most foundational things, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah,
have always optimized on the long tail,
yep.
right? And then maybe we can't come up. I don't know, actually. Maybe we can, but essentially, let's assume we can't come up with like deep research or the cloud code kind of a thing. But we definitely can come up with a process that can, let's say, improve the efficiency of some workflow. Let's say video editor's workflow, for example, and we can build an application around that specific part. That is something that I believe with my heart, that is something that we can probably end up doing for sure,
Yeah,
without any questions.
yeah,
Can we do the other things as well? I believe yes, but don't have the data to sort of
yeah, yeah. No,
support my
but like,
claim.
like I do think we're at a point where we know how to build great consumer products for our population. Zomato and Swiggy are far better products than Uber Eats and DoorDash, for example. Do I know if we are better at building consumer products globally yet? I don't know. I hope we get there and maybe we are on the path of doing things like I know your ex-employer an academy has a global learning product, AirLearn, which seems to be doing better than I expected.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're allowed to comment, but
Yeah, I mean, just based on the public data that I have,
yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah.
doing pretty good.
Yeah. So like maybe there are like some inklings of that where we might surprise a few folks and
It's very hard for me to sort of underestimate us
yeah, yeah,
in the application layer.
yeah, yeah,
Having said that, like I did not know, by the way, that Infosys and Vishal Sikka was like the
yeah,
ex-CEO of Infosys.
yes,
Like they were the original,
yeah.
one of the original investors in OpenAI. You knew that?
I did know that.
Oh my
I
god, I did
tweeted
not know
about
that.
this, I think. I think he also went to Stanford, I think.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
he did. He has a PhD in Stanford.
By the way, this report was built was had started this started making this before DeepSeek was launched. So a lot of things, essentially, the report says that you might have to discount this thing because post DeepSeek things might have changed in China and US and India as well. But essentially, pre DeepSeek, Nandan Nilekani, for example, said that our goal should not be to build one more LLM. It should be to use that LLM and the capital to build small models quickly and build out the application layer, which we just discussed. There are a bunch of AI companies that are there already in India. Do you want to give shout out to anybody? I know Portkey, for example, is a pretty good one, which is like made by one of my college senior. Presentations AI is also there, by the way.
InVideo is the one I've heard the most about,
Hmm.
and they at least are seemingly the fastest growing out of the lot that I know of. I have not spent a lot of time on many of the other ones, other
Yep.
than our favorite cloud provider, UE
E2E.
Network, Delhi-based company.
I'm like a part owner of that company, by the way.
Well, your stock is down now from yesterday.
So yeah, essentially post DeepSeek, like the vibe has shifted. A lot of companies and
Well,
a lot
okay,
of teams believe
yeah.
that they can build it out.
But
Uh,
I think some of this vibe shift is misplaced because like they fucking lied on or it was misconstrued how expensive it was to train DeepSeek. And I
Correct.
think people are like, oh, $10 million to make DeepSeek, we can do that in India, but that doesn't include the cost of actually training the model or all the costs that went up to setting up research institutions in China for them to be able to retain talent like that.
So when I read the paper, the
Yeah,
DeepSeek paper, essentially it said that $5.5 million was just the training cost, just like to run the training.
yeah,
So it was just the cost for that final training run.
yeah, yeah. It was
So
not the cost of procuring
research, procuring, all those things.
the
Yeah.
NVIDIA chips.
Yeah, 5.5 million is not probably the answer. And honestly, on their part, they had mentioned that this is only for
I know, but it was all the media hype was like,
media. Yeah,
oh, 5 million में बना लिया ने
correct,
model,
correct.
इंडिया में भी
That
बनाएंगे
was
हम
the funny.
5 million model.
Correct. But yeah, essentially, the vibe has shifted. Like, like see, all you need is hope,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
somebody will try. So
yeah.
Sridhar Vembu has got himself in the ring to sort of focus on R&D. We discussed Paras Chopra. He's also building. Arvind Srinivas, who's the CEO of Perplexity, also tweeted that he will basically help out for Indic languages. But if you go to the next slide, you will see that there's a tweet by Anmol Mani there. Essentially, Anmol, Sushil Monoth is another guy on Twitter who's famous. He basically said that skilled immigration is good for US with some stats. And then Anmol essentially, it says 7% of top AI researchers are Indian, but none of them work in India.
Yeah, yeah. So I think like the crux of the issue is that we are aware that we have brain drain. It might not be as bad of brain drain as like our parents' generation. Like I remember
Hmm.
when both my parents went to IIT, their entire classes moved to the US for masters. And I
Wow.
don't think that it's happening to that degree anymore. But most smart people still want to leave the country in hopes of better opportunities or
Even for a small amount of time, but they do
yeah,
want to, is
yeah,
what I've
yeah,
seen.
yeah, yeah. And like the hub of AI globally is still San Francisco and the US.
And China, somewhere in China, probably as well.
Okay, yeah, well, I'm American, so I disagree. But um, like all the smart top AI Indian guys are all in the US working for very big US labs or starting US companies. And I think that's why it's great for the US economy that a lot of the Indians immigrate there. It's maybe not as great for India's economy,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
they lose out on all this talent, but there's
yes,
also not enough in India that's holding them back that they'd be able to accomplish the same
correct.
here if they were.
It's like trading Cristiano Ronaldo to Manchester United from
Yeah,
Porto.
yeah.
Sporting, sorry, Sporting.
Well, yeah,
Uh,
I'm glad you. This is, and to give context, this is in 2003.
Three, yeah.
Not it was Sporting Lisbon, not Porto.
No, no, Sporting Lisbon. That's
Yeah,
what I.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
But
that was like, by the way, my peak football watching
okay,
time.
okay.
Yeah.
Now,
Uh,
now, now, if you send Cristiano Ronaldo to United, I don't think
he did, huh?
it
He
won't
did one
happen.
more stint, but okay. So can India build its own foundational model? That is another thing that India is trying to do. Ashwini Vaishnav has basically said that they want to do it. There is a call for proposals as well. We are yet to see what happens. But I
Well,
think this DeepSeek news
yeah.
sort of invigorated the whole
Yeah.
thing.
But like, okay, like my biggest issue with this is that we clearly are not allocating enough money. The India AI mission has like a budget of like $240 million.
Hmm.
You have PIF who has a project of $100 billion. You
Hmm.
have the US government who's working with Masa and Sama for
Hmm.
100 to $500 billion. But this is not even $1 billion. क्या करेंगे हम इसमें?
Let's see what we can do with 240. I think they're thinking that just like ISRO, right? We can probably get something done on ISRO level
Fair,
without the amount of budget that was required in the US. Maybe we
fair,
can pull it
fair.
off
Yeah,
over here as well.
yeah,
And honestly, see the know-how, technical know-how, the contents for training a new LLM or whatever. These things we already have in place,
yeah.
right? I mean, you can go and do that Andrej Karpathy's video and basically get the know-how of building like a maybe not the frontier model, but frontier minus one or frontier minus two model.
Yeah.
uh, what does that do? It probably helps you build out the ecosystem around AI. Does it get you a frontier model? That's a very difficult thing to sort of do with the amount of money we have. And obviously, like the report also feels that, because we have been successful with the digital public infra and ISRO, maybe this could be another thing that we
No, I mean, I
might be
think
able to do with like
the
less amount of
ISRO
money.
story is certainly like a great, like we're able to like nationalize and mobilize a lot of people and kind of
Hmm.
do it that way. And I think that's what like folks in the US keep talking about is like the way we beat China at AI is like we need like Manhattan Project for AI. And like
Hmm.
if India can kind of pull their own version of it off, it could be really interesting to see where it goes from there.
Yeah, report talks about the same optimistic things that we have some sort of talent. Let's say not the best, but maybe 90 percentile we have. We are starting to get the data centers now, and we are even building the data centers cheaper than other countries.
Yeah. And I think
Like
this.
we're cheaper than China as well in building the data centers. By the
Yeah.
way,
And I think this like currently this chart's like a little old because or maybe doesn't account for like I think like Geo wants to build like a 300 megawatt data center in Bombay, which is bigger than the one that Facebook's building in New York, and would like instantly like propel us upwards by a couple of positions at least. So very cool to see like if and when that happens.
I feel like things are getting into the place. I don't know about the frontier, but we probably are not as behind as I had actually initially thought. Then we have basically come to the playbook section where we talk about Indus Valley playbooks. Dude, my company name is Indus Bit. Okay, every time I'm having to say Indus Valley, I just by by habit I'm just going to say Indus Bit and then stop myself like Valley.
Uh,
Okay. So India 2 playbook is evolving. Essentially, initial playbook was launch a proven product from West and launch it in India. Now the playbooks have sort of evolved and we've re-engineered the products for like the specific problems in India. For example, Bumble is an app that helps you start dating, right?
yep.
But essentially that does not work for maybe India 2 or India 3 because because of the cultural situation or whatever, they have not had a chance to even chat
Interact with
to
the
the
other gender.
other gender. So the friend app essentially does that.
Yeah.
It helps you first get to talk to the other gender. Similarly, we have Rocket Health and Visa kind of apps which are for getting therapy and mental health care. We have astrotalk for India
But
too.
I
I
don't
believe is
I
astrotalk is
don't
for
agree
India
with
one.
take, but I like
Okay.
we like I know Bloom has put it, but I think substituting astrology, like astrology is a big category in India,
India
and
one goes to astrology for
yeah,
sure.
India
And
one goes. Everyone in India
yeah,
believes in astrology, and it's a big part spiritually, culturally. But to like kind of conflate it with therapy is, I think, more
correct.
misplaced.
Another insight that was there was that we have like products like, let's say, Red Bull. Now Red Bull is 105 rupees for, let's say, 300 ml or something. We have an equivalent Sting, which is like 20 rupees, which
Yeah,
is built by Pepsi.
yeah,
Similarly, we have Takat as a protein bar for like 10 rupees versus 75 rupee the whole truth bar. And then we have Stage, which is like 400 rupees annually, but Netflix is like 1800 rupees annually. Having
yeah,
said that, Stage is now able to produce films for just 20 lakhs,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is like very small.
yeah.
20 lakhs is like very small. And they're able to come like film a movie in like just 15
15
days,
days. Yeah, yeah,
which is amazing, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
because their inputs, the input costs are also low, they are able to sort of charge low as well. Like these are some insights that I found, like, they were like, wow. So another insight that is shared by this report is essentially the Indus Valley, the startups are now figuring out the culture or just dictating the culture for the mainstream in India. So for example, we have the Indranagar Ka Gunda ad from Cred, Lenskart ads. There was one ad with Vishy and Gukesh.
That was Mintra.
Mintra is a startup, no? Or at least an Indus
Yeah.
Valley company.
No, Mintra did the
Vishy,
Gukesh and
correct,
Wish. Yeah.
Vishy and Gukesh. So, and these ads essentially were like built by new age creator agencies like Tanmay Butts and Vishal Dayama's agencies. They are able to sort of be more radical in their approach versus the safe playing agencies.
No, I think it's been really interesting to see that, like, kind of like you have a little more out there ads and like people kind of wanting to push the boundaries a little more. I feel like the nostalgic ads of like the early 2000s still hit more than any of the new ads though.
I think, but that's because of your nostalgia rather than
Yeah,
anything else.
fair, fair.
Another thing that they have discussed is something that we are doing probably. Essentially, Indus Valley likes full stack brand building, and they are
Yes.
building a
So
lot more personal brands and stuff like that. Like
yeah, I mean the
Zomato, for
number of
example, has hired an in-house creative agency as well.
yeah, I mean like the number of creators or founders, sorry. The number of founders I know who have become creators and full-time Instagram people like is interesting to see that transition.
Another interesting insight that I saw from this was the India one and India two. The advertising is very different when you're trying to target them. India two ads are the ads that you obviously think about. Like you will have like a trusted person, like a actor or a cricketer, who is essentially promoting the product. But India one is more about highlighting the ingredients, the clever copy, the use of content to build that trust,
Yeah,
rather
yeah.
than actually putting it. And it's actually true. I don't care
Shahrukh,
who
yeah,
who is
promoting.
endorsing the product I'm using,
Yeah, yeah.
as long as the product is actually something that I want to use, right?
Yeah. I think like
So
yeah, India once kind of evolved in like what they look for when you're buying a product or service now. Like you care like we've gotten maybe like educated enough on a lot of categories that like people know what they want to look for. And I think like in food especially like even creators like food pharma have helped us be like okay like what we should look for when we're buying juice brand or a protein
sauce,
bar or
whatever.
whatever. And like it's no longer based on whatever Sara Ali Khan or Saif Ali Khan is promoting. It's what you want to buy now.
Yeah, I don't care if my insurance is endorsed by Saif Ali Khan, for example. Yeah.
Why? You don't think
No,
it's a
I mean
great?
that's what I'm saying. India one doesn't care
Oh,
about that.
okay, okay.
So basically, one more thing that they've also written is that there are cells sometimes used in India one advertising, like in Bold Care or Cred, but it is more to cut through the clutter rather than actually borrowing credibility from. So, like, let's say when you're talking about Cred, you're not talking about Cred because they are, let's say, endorsed by Rahul Dravid or Govinda or whoever, but you're talking about them because like these people were used creatively there in the
Yeah,
ads.
yeah,
Another playbook that we are seeing is of reducing the return rates for e-commerce. Essentially, in e-commerce, the return rates are very high, and that sort of adds up to the bottom line. So returns plus another thing is returns on marketplaces are are
Higher.
like so high, like they're
Yeah.
4.5 times higher. So,
Yeah.
as per unicommerce,
Yeah.
returns on marketplace is 26.3% versus 6.2% on the brand's own website,
Yeah. Yeah.
which was interesting because I thought like a brand's, if you buy from something from brand, you have like lower trust, but I don't know.
By the time you get to a point of like actually going through a purchase decision on a brand's own website, I assume you've built more trust.
Another thing is that cash on delivery is obviously a higher return percentage than prepaid orders. So
Yeah.
the difference is 20%, 21% versus 5.8%.
Yeah.
Then returns are highest for fashion and footwear. I'm assuming because
Fit.
it doesn't fit well, it doesn't look good, and those kind
Yeah.
of things. For
Yeah.
example, versus let's say a bottle that you don't care that much about. And oh my god, so for COD orders of fashion brands on marketplaces, I'm assuming things like market Mintra, the returns are in 45 to
Yeah.
55% range, and half of them are probably by my wife.
Really? No, I had
You
a
know what she does?
yeah.
She
Yeah.
goes and she she gets like about, let's say, 10 pieces.
Yeah.
Okay, 10 different things, and she like try it on everything, and then maybe
Keep.
keep two of them and return
Well, I
it.
think that's I think that's the average female experience of online shopping. I have this
Yeah.
friend in or friend of friend in San Francisco who got banned by a marketplace for doing too many returns.
Yeah, my wife
Uh,
essentially pays extra amount on Mintra
we have
to
to
do
pay
this.
extra to do returns now.
No, no. So she pays extra because her
Oh,
account is has been flagged that way.
okay.
So she started using my account later, and then I also have to now pay extra.
Well, this is why you should use Click
Yeah,
if she's trying by. So then you don't have to pay extra.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, so and returns are of the two types: return to origin, return to vendor. Return to origin essentially means that the customer was not home,
yeah,
and return to vendor means that they did not like something. On marketplaces, the RTO, and on website as well, the RTO is essentially the same, 10%, 9%. Like that's
yeah.
the
And
number.
I
But
think like quick commerce does like a good job of like reducing RTO because like at least from what I've understood is like you're doing quick commerce like when you're at home
correct.
versus like I might try shop on Mintra and will come 2 days later. I might be at the office. I might have gone to the gym. I
Yep.
might be going somewhere else, and the guy tries to call me. I don't pick up, and then my thing doesn't get delivered.
Yeah, I think that becomes a problem. That's another reason why quick commerce is like better than e-commerce
Yeah,
in its current form.
yeah.
And then return to vendor, essentially when customer collects and returns.
I think
Uh,
that's the bigger problem to solve.
that's the bigger problem for sure. Marketplaces are 39% return to vendor,
Yeah,
and own website would be 14%.
yeah,
So the difference is essentially on own website, you get 24% returns. On marketplaces, that's 48%.
yeah,
Crazy.
yeah.
So reducing returns essentially is the thing that you have to focus on a lot to sort of make sure that you get your profitably out there. A lot of consumer brands are now nudging buyers to prepay, because once you've prepaid as well, your return sort of goes down, and returns directly sort of correlate to your bottom line rather than the top line. So that's also good. We had a shout out to Naturally Yours, which is again a company that's sort of the founder of the company is active on Twitter. So shout out to that guy.
Shout out Vinod.
But one of the reasons why this happens, like one of the why reasons why RTOs are high in India, is because the addresses are so
Oh,
crazy in
yes,
India.
yes.
Without, let's say, doxing yourself or maybe something like that, can you share like an address in the US that you had?
1XXX Pacific Avenue, apartment 14, San Francisco zip code.
That's it.
Yeah,
So for context, like when I put my home address, I have to write near post office
yeah. No, I
every
have like
time.
I put like near this hospital for
Yeah.
my house in Delhi.
And you know why? Why do I have to write near post office? Because
Why?
my address in Jaipur has this the the Hindi the.
Okay.
Okay, and because it's written in English, it's similar to
Oh,
ta. So my orders go to like the same address, but without the it goes to
uh,
and so we have to write like near post office so that it knows, okay, it's the one near the post office.
oh my God.
Just crazy stuff, right? And these kind of things sort of at the end of the day affect the brand that is
Yeah,
just
yeah,
sending the
yeah. Yeah.
things. So as per a quote over here, poor addresses cost India 10 to 14 billion dollars annually, half a percent of the GDP. Imagine if we could just save this and put it into our AI program.
No, this is why quick commerce makes so much sense for India.
But how do they solve? I think
Because
so.
you
Currently,
put your pin, no?
oh, you're saying because they have the exact location
Yeah.
from Google. Oh,
Yes.
I think
I
other
mean, like
e-commerce
any
have
any
also started doing
marketplace
that.
could do that, but like when you're a traditional e-com marketplace, or if you are a brand's own website, then you're handing off delivery to a third party. So like you're transferring like this pin data to that pin data. If some service providers don't take your geo location and just take the address, and maybe they end up somewhere else. So when you have like a fully integrated marketplace and logistics company, you can better take care of deliveries that way.
Next slide has, by the way, your portfolio
Yeah, we talked
companies
about
Slick.
that's what we talked about, like with return to vendor being
Correct.
a
Try and
major
buy.
thing to solve for marketplaces, and
Correct.
like already like 20% of their orders are try and buy, so people can try them right when they come and keep what they want and return what they don't like.
Yeah, so try and buy essentially is what my wife does with Mintra, but instead of ordering, let's say, 20 things,
Yeah,
with Slick, hopefully she can just order the 20 things and pay for just the two,
yeah.
and it doesn't get
You
counted
tell
as
her
a
to
problem.
become a Slick's power user now. Ask her what brand she wants me to discount her to add, and we'll work on that.
Now maybe it's time for you to shine. We're talking about India Zero.
India zero. What is India zero? India zero is India's diaspora. We have now like about 35 million Indians and or NRIs and people of Indian origin globally now. I think US is the largest one with about 5.5 million. You have about 3 million in Canada, 2 million in the UK. I think like a million odd in Australia as well. You have South Africa, Dubai, Saudi. Kind of like you have Indians all over the globe essentially. Like I remember I was studying abroad in Denmark, and I was visiting Norway. And in Oslo, I ran into like a mini India section, and like that was like the last place I thought I'd find Indians, but like we are all over the globe. What's interesting is like how big India zero is. So like if India one is about like 140 million odd people, India zero is still like 35 million people, which is a big number. And I think the impact of India's diaspora on the country and the economy is already like very well evident. Our remittances are over $100 billion annually. So like $100 billion annually is coming from outside India into India, which is greater than the foreign direct investment in the country. What you also see is Indians globally, especially in countries like the US and the UK and Australia, are kind of the highest income earners in those countries. So in the US, I don't know if you've seen that Twitter meme that keeps on getting popularized every couple of years on like how much Indian Americans make and Taiwanese Americans make and Chinese Americans and Pakistani Americans and yada yada yada, and Indians are like top of the list. So the medium household income for Indians is $150,000, which is over a crore annually, which is I think like double the average in the US. The other big thing we are seeing globally is kind of Indian Americans and people of Indian origin kind of becoming super big culturally. So you have like Never Have I Ever that went really popular. Charlie XCX is half Indian. Hassan Minaj is was the host of the Tonight Show for a bit. So you kind of having like Indian Americans and British Indians are having like a big moment culturally, and so it's, you finally have started to see companies kind of target this demographic. So
You
anywhere,
forgot Babulicious, I guess.
yeah, Red Challenger. But as a result, you now have brands specifically targeting Indian Americans or people of Indian origin. Like anywhere from Sabyasachi has a NYC outlet and like a flagship store there. You have a lot of fashion brands kind of looking towards the US and the Indians there. It's kind of very interesting, like how many of my white friends have now been to India to come to a Indian wedding. So it makes sense for like Sabyasachi and all the like wedding wear brands to kind of now be physically located in the US, given like how everyone in SF in New York has Indian friends, and will invariably go to an Indian wedding at some point. But you start seeing it percolate down to like jewelry and fragrances and Indian inspired fashion. Like I'm a small investor in a company called Gully Labs, which makes sneakers that are like authentically Indian and inspired by like Indian design, which does a fair amount of revenue from outside India amongst ABCDs and the diaspora globally, which is also super cool to see. Now we're going even further with like Amul going to America, where like it's I assume not just selling to Indians, but selling kind of to all Americans. So that's kind of even cooler to see. Do you have any thoughts on Diaspora India Zero?
uh, hmm, not really. पूरा ऊपर से गया honestly मिल तो.
What was your biggest takeaway? If you had to say kind of like talk about one thing.
One thing that India is crazy for gambling. I mean, why do we have so much FNO and like you said 9 seconds or 20 seconds? I
Nine
don't know.
nine seconds,
9
9 seconds.
seconds. We are holding a contract for 9 seconds.
Yeah. I think for
What's
me,
going on?
I think for me, it's the like the how big travel globally has become. Like that, the amount of money we spend on travel. Also, like a lot of it is powered by lending. We were taking loans to travel.
People are taking loans to do FNO as well, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I couldn't believe it went from 1.3 or 8 or some number to like 31. Like that's
No,
just
50.
51, sorry,
Yeah, yeah,
51.
yeah,
That's just incomprehensible. I was talking to a guy basically who was building in like travel space, and then he was like, I don't want to touch the money part. I'm like, then what else will you do, man? Like that's where the whole
yeah,
growth and volume is.
yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, so to end off, I have a fun segment. So I'm gonna teach everyone how you get featured on the Bloom
Yeah.
Indus Valley annual report.
So
So
Anmol, for context, has been there in this report twice, but
yes, and then
in
last year,
last year also you were there.
yeah, last year I was also there. I was India's greatest export is its people. So
Ah,
definitely around the export in India US themes.
okay.
But okay, so step one,
Hmm.
figure out who all is working on the report. So Sajid's there, Anurag's there. There's a couple other folks. I think they usually have an editorial help every year. So you figure out who all these people are. And kind of get them to follow you on Twitter because this is
Okay. How?
I mean, that you have to kind of figure out on your own.
Okay.
Like,
Exercise for the reader.
yeah, yeah. Then, then you figure out when people will likely work on the report. So it usually starts towards the end of a year and a couple of months into the year. Uh, the way I like to do it is like, for some context, like I've known Sajid for several years now, and he is the one of the most responsive VCs in India I know. But when his responses get a little slower, I know he's either chasing a deal or he is working on the report. So that's when I know okay, it's go time. Then step three, try to figure out what the themes of the report might be.
How
Uh,
does one that do that then?
you ask the people working on the report, or you can kind of get a sense. Like I mean, I think D2C and quick commerce was massive in India last
Yeah.
year.
AI and D2C like.
So
Oh,
like
sorry, not AI and quick commerce. Yeah.
yeah,
For example.
so like you can kind of get a sense of like what the pulse in the ecosystem is every couple of months, and you just kind of hone in on that. So now you have who all is gonna be writing the report, when they're gonna start writing about it, and possibly what they are going to write about. Okay?
Okay.
Then when we're in this time period, you start ramping up the amount of tweets you do around these themes, and voila, you are in the report.
Okay. So you're let me see if I get it
Yeah,
correctly. Okay.
yeah.
Firstly, you need to know Sajid
No, no, you can know Anurag as well and
or
the other
Anurag.
folks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good. Yeah. So essentially, you're
yeah.
just
Okay,
saying
so Sajid,
ki
Anurag.
figure out what is going to be in the
Yeah,
exam and just write,
yeah.
just learn
So
about that.
I'll see the end. So it's Sajid, Anurag, Nachimai, and Dhruv. Gotta know either of these four people.
Uh,
That is first step.
step one.
Yeah. Step two, याद है?
Step two is figure out the themes
No,
of
step 2 is when they're going to work on the report.
when they're going to work on it, which is going to be at the end of the year or the early start of the next year.
Yes.
And the step three is figure out what they're going to talk about.
Yes.
And then step four is tweet the fuck out of it.
Yeah.
tweet, tweet, tweet like as much as you can about that topic.
Yes. Yes.
Something is bound to hit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but do you need to have like a critical mass of followers to sort of make sure that you can get something out of it?
No, I don't think so because like there's like some folks who are on this who don't have like, I mean, like you have more followers than me on Twitter, I think.
No, that can't be true.
Okay, how many do you have?
I don't
Like
know.
there's definitely like people on here with just like a couple of thousand of followers. You don't have to be like in the hundreds of.
Essentially, have a hit tweet. Try to get a hit tweet
You gotta get a hit tweet in the right categories.
in the right category.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Or you be a founder that gets featured and then
Yeah.
it's easier to get your tweet in. Cool.
Cool. So, my
4 hours,
God.
3 hours later, we are finally done with the report.
Yeah, it's going to be one hell of an edit.
Oh God.
Cool, then I guess that's our time because, yeah, that has been more than our time.
Yeah.
So,
Uh,
peace.
uh,
Peace.
peace. ठीक है.